on my mind.
Hello and welcome to episode 66 of the award-winning combat sports podcast, The Boxing Show, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe, turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, we're in a slightly new surrounding today. We're a little bit late, so we are going to try and speed through the start. But I'm joined by the usual twosome of Mr. Andy Clarke and a very confused looking Barry Jones. How are you? You okay there, Barry?
It's weird, isn't it?
It is weird, yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
It's nice.
We're in the same place. It's sort of nice.
Chairs are better.
It reminds me of the place. You remember we were in a place a long time ago?
Outset Studio.
And it was really hot. We were sat down like this. Remember the first time we did it? I just remember how sweaty my ass was. But it's not sweaty today.
There you go, for those wondering about the state of Barry's arse at the minute. Not sweaty. But anyway.
He's bringing out his own podcast.
Anyway, moving on. Andy, how are you?
Yeah, good. My anus is perspiration free also.
You said anus, man. That's just wrong.
This is
So,
a great
You can't say anus.
No, good, yeah. Like I say, these chairs are more comfortable than usual. So you can just kind of settle in and
Which is
feels
handy.
a little bit more cash, doesn't it? A bit more jazz club.
You said cat. You're so middle class. It's unbelievable.
They are much more comfortable, which is great because we've been sat in them for an hour waiting to start. But we've got there in the end. And with that being said, let's try and whiz through because we do have a lot to review and, of course, look forward to this weekend.
Just
Barry,
thumbs up and thumbs down.
Barry, going to come to you first. We're going to stay on it this week. We're going to stay on it. Going to come to you first for Friday night's action.
Love a Friday night.
Sam Gilley returned to action, winning ways against late replacement Jack McGann. Kind of had things his own way a little bit on Friday night, Sam Gilley.
He had a relatively easy night, which is not really a Sam Gilley trait. Let's be honest. He's been great about Sam Gilley, and he got all the attributes to make things easy for himself, and constantly wants to get involved in a war. But that's why he's a sellable product. That's why he can punch, and he knows he can punch, and he bets on himself. He takes a good shot. Been in some of the best fights I've seen in recent years. Sam Gilley, to be fair, but Jack McGann, I feel sorry for Jack McGann because I think he has the ingredients to be a decent fighter. He's just been chucked in a bit too deep, too quick, and I don't think he's ready for that level just yet. But you get a call late for a fight like that. It's very hard to turn down, so you have to take the opportunity. But yeah, just outgunned by Sam Gilley, who's I think he's ready for that next step up now. I think been more of a test. Him and Louis Green, the first fight was fantastic. We'd like to see that again. But if he gets offered a European title shot or something like that, he's going to have to take it and roll the dice. I think it's a difficult step up for him. But I mean, and he's such a sellable product. He's a good-looking kid. You know, he's got a superstar, best mate in what's his name? That's the one. The X Factor guy.
Ollie Murs.
Ollie Murs. I did security for Ollie Murs when he was in the X Factor.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I told him. We did another podcast, and I told him on that one. And but I was doing security when the year he was in it. So yeah, but either way, so he's a lot of sellable product, but he fights and he knows how to fight and he can punch a bit. So he's always in exciting fights. But yeah, that was on paper, and it transpired to be one of the more comfortable nights that he'll have.
Andy, good performance from Sam Gilley. Obviously, we were eagerly anticipating that rematch with Louis Green, aka the scariest sounding boxer in the world.
The Medway Mauler.
Yeah, I mean, he is a scary man. But of course, now Sam Gilley's obviously come through that. It looks as though that we could still see that Gilley-Green 2 fight. But as Barry said there, he looks to be sort of ready to make that jump up. He's had some really good fights in the last few years. We spoke briefly before we came on. The fight with Drew Brown at York Hall a few years ago was as good as any fight they've seen there for a long, long time. But seems to be ready to make that next step up now, Sam Gilley.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that fight with Green is still currently the best one out there for him. But just good to see him boxing again, really, because he's been inactive through no fault of his own. Boxer won the purse bids for that rematch originally and then just ended up not putting that fight on. Couldn't really understand why that was. but then they got put out to bid again. And in that situation, you feel for the two fighters involved because they're having their careers put on hold there, aren't they? They're being messed around. And then Green pulls out, and he must have been thinking, Christ. Jack McGann stepped in, credit to him. I agree with Barry. I think through no fault of his own, he has just been pitched in a little bit too deep, too quick. And it was just a good performance. He did what he needed to do, and it was good to watch, and there was a good atmosphere. And he's a TV fighter. Yeah. And he is marketable, and the Ollie Murs thing works because Ollie Murs he sort of does it perfectly. He doesn't really want it to be about him at all because it's not, but he'll also do just enough to make sure that his friend can profit from the profile that he's got. So he plays that game ideally. He's people kind of describe him as a bit of a throwback, him and lads like Louis Green, but it's a shame in a way because they're just what you should be as pro fighters. They want to fight, they want hard fights, they expect to get rewarded properly for having a hard fight, and that's really what they're about. And the more of them, the better.
Yeah, really looking forward to hopefully seeing Gilley versus Green too. We're going to move on from Friday night, but just a note on a big win for the returning Nick Webb. We mentioned him briefly before we came on the air. 281 pounds of him, looking fantastic really against Courtney Bennett to pick up the Southern Area title over 10 rounds. A nice little addition to the domestic heavyweight pool. Some fun fights for Nick Webb. But moving on to Saturday night, of course, Adam Azim against Ohara Davies. Andy, going to come to you first. Pretty much punch perfect, I felt, from Adam Azim. Dissected Ohara Davies before getting him out of there inside 8 rounds.
I thought he was really, really good. And I heard Shane McGuigan say afterwards that he felt it was probably his career best performance. Matt McLean, sitting next to me, said the same thing. And I do agree with that. I thought he was terrific. He's been out for longer than he would have wanted to have been. Injured himself running late at night around Slough, and I know his trainer was pretty furious with him for that because he hadn't been told to go running. He'd been told that you're doing enough. So I think that was probably quite a valuable lesson actually, that you don't have to just do extra training because you feel like it. The rest is just as important as anything else. But he was really, really good. And Ohara Davies, I don't think we could have expected much more from him because we knew from the way he'd been talking that he had one foot in retirement, and when that's the case, you'd wonder, or I was wondering, how long he might be able to maintain the will to continue for when it got hard, because that becomes pretty malleable, doesn't it, when you're thinking about this could be his last fight. And obviously going into it, he pretty much knew it was going to be his last fight, but he got hurt to the body. His nose went, and he toughed it out until the 8th round, and then the towel came in, although I don't think he was going to beat that count anyway. But it was a very composed, ruthless performance, really, and that's what you want to see. And better, I think, than if he put him away early. I think it was good to see him kind of take his time a little bit and just do exactly what he needed to do, which was a proper number on him.
Barry, we've seen Adam Azim certainly in the early parts of, I suppose, his professional career and indeed his career on Sky, blowing guys away and looking fantastic in a round or two. Probably his last 4 or 5 fights now going a little bit longer, getting behind the jab and being a little bit more patient. Andy used the word mature there. I think something like that. What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, I thought that. Well, I think, he's boxing guys who are naturally bigger. He's boxing super feathers and lightweights, wasn't he, really, at the beginning. And natural, I think, or when they were in the peak or whatever. But now he's moved up a little bit and up in class, then people don't fall over so easy, so he's got to adapt a bit. But I thought it was really good. I think it was his best performance. I think it was a really mature, controlled display. I mean, if you want to be picky, I think you could have got him out there a round or two earlier if he would have put his foot on the gas. But I like the way he didn't take any risks, because Ohara Davies, technically flawed, but he has those such long levers that it's hard to get the judgment right with distance, and also he can bang. I've seen him throw one of the best right hands I've seen ever thrown when he beat that Paul Kamanga, and literally he hit him so hard the guy's feet went together before he fell over. He made him go from like a wide boxing style. He hit him, his feet went together, and he fell over. It was unbelievable. So he has the power to hurt you still. But the jab was superb from Azim. Fast and accurate, and every time he would look to do something, which wasn't that often, Ohara Davies, he just went bang with a jab straight away, just put him in his place, and then just worked everything off that. Once he's seen a little space, he'd throw a left hook to the body now and again, and just totally slowly but cleverly and effectively worked him over. So he got the stoppage. And I think you're right. I don't think he was getting up from that. I think he could have got up, but I just think at that point, the whole thing about him, this may be my last real hurrah. If I can win this fight, I push on for Ohara Davies, and if I don't, then I'm finishing. I think he knew on the floor, this is my last fight. I'm done. So I think the ref they were waving the towel, but I think he wasn't coming out. He wasn't getting up off that. He just didn't want to know. That's not him quitting. I'm not criticising him quitting. He just knew this is the end of my career now. So what's the point? And it was only going to get worse for him. So yeah, I think it was a really good win for him. And pushes him on now. I mean, there's one fight we all want to see. I don't know whether it happens, but him and Dalton Smith seems like a natural fight to make. I mean, people would say let's keep it boiling and this for a more meaningful title, but isn't the European title meaningful enough?
Yeah, I think now's the time, isn't it? I remember 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, Azim boxing at Alexandra Palace against Ryland Charlton, and Dalton Smith came and worked on the show with us. And at that point, he was making a decision about... Yeah, he was out of contract, and he was making a decision about where he would go next. And that fight then would have been a good reason for him to come over to Boxer and to Sky. It didn't happen in the end. But at that stage, people were talking about it, and we're 2 years further down the line now, and they both had big wins, because Dalton Smith against Sapeda was a really, really good win.
That's the best win.
Yeah, that was a fantastic win. And so they both jumped up levels. Why not do it now? Like, if they have a really good fight, whoever loses, what, does that mean they're finished? Of course not. They're both young guys too. Azim's only 22, and they won't want to push him what they feel like is too quick, but I feel like they will think that he's ready for that. And having a really big domestic fight, and who knows, it could lead to a rematch, that's great experience for boxing at the really top end. The scrutiny and the exposure of it and all the publicity around it will be just really good for both of them. The problems are obvious with the different promoters and different networks, but you've got to be optimistic that there are ways around these things, and not just meaning it goes to Saudi Arabia, because that's what people say straight away now. It's like, oh, well, that might be a bit tricky, so that could be a Riyadh season fight. And that has been an amazing thing about Riyadh season, that it's produced these fights and managed to put on these fights that we wouldn't have got otherwise. But we can't just hold our hands up, throw our hands up every time there's a fight that might involve somebody, two sets of people or four sets of people sitting down and thrashing something out. That one needs to be in the UK, I think.
And this is not a fight that can't be made without that investment either. Let's be honest. I think.
Exactly.
I mean, they're not getting mega money. It'd be good money for both of them. It's not mega money unless they demand that. And I don't think either one's in that position to demand it. But I can see reasons why they both wouldn't take it. Their camps, not the boxers. It's never the boxers. Their camps, because Dalton Smith's in a position now after that Sapeda win. He's on the brink of a world title shot.
Yeah, his rankings are good.
So I'm rightly so. That was a great win. And because Sapeda is that, he's better than that gatekeeper, isn't he? Let's be honest. But. So, he's right there. And why would... No, and being, what is he, 28 now? Dalton Smith?
Dalton's 27, I think.
Is he only 27, is he? He looks 28. No.
27.
There you go. But, he won't want to be... He can still rebuild if that loss, but it's a bigger rebuild for him because he's already in a high rate. He goes out of those rankings, so he's there. And also for Adam Azim, he got so much time. Why would they... they may think, we don't need to risk that just yet. We can still get, but he is European champion, so it's not like once you get to that level, it's almost no fights off the table, really, for either one of them. You think that if you're at that level,
I could see why they might think, well, let's just go ahead and do the Harlem Eubank fight, which we were going to do, which didn't quite happen. We can just do that. That again, the name, and Harlem's a good fighter.
Harlem's a good fighter, by the way. Yeah. People think, because he haven't got this destructive power. That his uncle and his cousin seemed to have, and that he didn't really have that much destructive power after all, did he, Chris Jr.? But still, looked like in his career when he was knocking him out left, right, and centre. But he's a clever fighter. He's done a proper apprenticeship, Adam Eubank, and he knows the game. So he's a hard man to beat. He is a really hard for either one of them, to be honest. But they both go in the favourite. That's the truth. So for Azim, that seems a natural fight. But for us as boxing fans, we just shouldn't give a shit about politics and money and whose career falters or whose career gains. We just want to see a good domestic scrap, and that weight division is clearly the best one to have.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the latest is with Dalton Smith's fight with John Fernandez. I know that they were looking at rescheduling that. Is that supposed to go to
Monte Carlo?
Monte Carlo,
December.
Has that been announced?
No, it hasn't. So I don't know.
I think it's been. I was going to say.
I'm not in the know there.
It was heavily mooted for that Monte Carlo show.
It's a good fight, that is, by the way.
Yeah, John Fernandez is a good fighter. Very much kind of like a European level fighter. So certainly not a gimme for Dalton Smith. Albeit he will go into that fight as a huge favourite. I think making that fight in the UK will be tricky. I think the demand for that fight, when kind of looking at, where Adam Azim and Dalton Smith are with regards to ticket seller, being able to shift tickets. I mean, I saw the interview, or one of the interviews, where Shalom, of course, promoter of Adam Azim, was kind of, Dalton Smith sort of stuck it on him in one of the Saudi shows recently, which I was all for. I love stuff like that. It was great, because particularly somebody like Dalton Smith, who doesn't really do stuff like that. It was nice to see. But I remember Dalton Smith saying, who's the ticket seller? I think with respect to both of those guys, neither of them are at that stage yet.
Because Dalton did Sheffield, but it wasn't packed. So there was room for more.
Adam would have done. I mean, he did the show at the Hopper Box, but it didn't look. Banged out.
And I don't know what it was like Saturday, but I mean, Dalton did a respectable amount of tickets. Yeah. I mean, you have to build a fan base.
So that's kind of where I'm thinking. If it's going to happen in the UK, it's difficult to, because both sides are going to want paying well for that, and you're going to want a premium on top of what you would want to get, because it's you're crossing the divides, and it's this and it's early and whatever else. That is something that, if that's going to happen in the UK, unless it's a UK event sponsored by Riyadh Season, as we've kind of seen recently,
or it's a chief support to a
big fight,
or equal top of the bill to another big fight. It's I do understand. I do understand the problems with getting any given two fighters into a ring together, but it will just be so much easier to promote. And really make into an event if it's in the UK, because I know you can look at it and feel like, well, it's the same time zone, basically, a fight in Saudi, and the fight weeks are really well organised, and you get loads of access, and the content's going out at the normal kind of time. The fact that they're over there rather than here shouldn't make too much difference, but it does. Like Fabio Wardley, Fraser Clarke, the rematch, it didn't ignite here in the same way that it would have done if it had been here, and that's just
that would have been a packed O2, wouldn't it, that one? It's I think not guaranteed, but I'm pretty sure it would have been.
I mean, the first fight on the Sunday, that was
pretty full. It wasn't full, but it was pretty full.
And also, you can't be wherever you go around the world. There's not anywhere dig at any place. Certainly not Saudi Arabia, but there's no better crowd than British crowd. That's just, I mean,
that's true.
And you said that
for a big domestic fight as well. You're going to have two entirely different sets of fans.
I mean, they as events, like no one is bigger than Saudi. That's we've been there. How they do the things they do and the stuff they do is phenomenal. But I mean, for crowd based, even we all have Vegas trips and we all have American fights, and they're some of the best I've been to. But I mean, when you go to a really real big domestic fight in Britain, when it's packed out, the noise of the crowd, it's a different noise. It's just even if it's packed out, like Canelo's, we all did Canelo. I'd tell me they've been packed, and it's great and it's loud and it's singing, it's brilliant. It's just a different energy. I mean, it's not always a positive energy, by the way, but it's that football hooligan type. It's just massive, isn't it? It's mega. It's just you can't beat it, you can't top it. I don't think. And I think I know you wouldn't get that with Azim and Dalton Smith, but you put them on the undercard of a big fight. But look at Wembley. Wembley was a fantastic atmosphere.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, Joshua? And
it really was.
It was unbelievable. For such a big, because sometimes in big, even if they're full, those big arenas. Get lost a bit, can't it? Yeah, because it's just too much. There's too many people there who don't really know what's going on. But I think sports in the UK, everyone just turns into an animal when they watch it, don't they? Everyone, even the women. Not even the women. That's sexy. I didn't mean to say that. I mean,
especially the women.
Everybody just kind of surrenders to it, don't they?
Yeah.
They're there
old
for a
men,
good
young
night
kids.
out.
We're all everyone's the same.
Everybody just lets loose. No one's pretending to be too cool for school. It's all, we're here for a big event and we're going to enjoy it. and we're going to let that emotion and adrenaline just take us wherever it takes us, and that's.
And you pick a side,
great.
don't you?
Yeah,
pick a side
exactly.
quite easy, don't they? Like they can't just want someone want to see a good fight. They want someone to get battered and someone to win. You know, it's like
you get that tribalism that you don't necessarily get elsewhere, which is a big part of boxing, isn't it?
And that and the ring walks, you know, that's what makes the ring walks here a much more of a thing, I think, than they can be in other countries. Everywhere's different, isn't it? And that's always been one of my arguments when people have criticised the atmosphere in Saudi, is that it isn't the UK. Nowhere else is the UK. You watch boxing in Germany or in Scandinavia and Japan, and it's very, very different. So the idea that you can transplant a UK boxing audience to anywhere in the world, it doesn't happen. You can't do it. So everybody just needs to relax a bit on that score. And that's why it's particularly important that we make sure, or we do our best to keep some of these big domestic fights in the UK. I mean, Riyadh season's been spectacular. But even if you were them, you might be thinking, okay, fellas, we're not going to do that one. You know, you do need to, don't get out of the habit of doing your own fights, you know, just because we're here. Because you've got to keep doing it, haven't you?
You'd also think that potentially after the success of Joshua Dubois, I think it has to be considered a success, that you would look at that if you're part of the Riyadh season kind of team, I suppose. I don't know how it kind of works out, and think, okay, that worked really well. You know, we had 90,000 people singing.
They know the worth of it. I think they knew it before they did it. I think they realised that fight had to go on. I mean, the rematch might go to if they're paying for it, why shouldn't they have it where they want to have it, to be fair, and why wouldn't they?
Yeah, I know they've got loads. Everybody talks about the resources, and that's fine, but at the same time, it's going to be much more expensive for them to come and do something at Wembley than it is to do it in Riyadh, and people are looking at the bottom line, because, you know, these are high achievers. These are people who, they want the bottom line to make some kind of sense.
It's not just in the sport for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Make it profitable for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just the case that we can expect them to be this all singing or all dancing venture who are just going to, for the good of the sport, give us absolutely everything we want wherever we want it. That's not realistic. Coming here once a year, I don't think we can really expect them to do it more than that, can we?
Well, I mean, the fact that now it seems like every UK show has some sort of affiliation or sponsorship to Riyadh season anyway. Yeah. So you would imagine that there's a way and means around it.
They might be paying for these domestic shows in ways that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right, we do have to move on, but last couple of quick ones on Adam Azim. First and foremost, I mean, we've seen kind of the 5v5, we've seen a little bit like Boxer are now kind of joining the foray over in Saudi Arabia. Do we think we see Adam Azim versus Dalton Smith next?
No, I don't think so. I'd like to think so, but I don't think we do. I don't think anyone's avoiding anyone massively. I just think, especially from Azim's point of view, I think he's such a young guy who has loads of scope to grow. He doesn't need to take that big step. Nor does Dalton Smith, but Dalton Smith's already close to a world title shot, so that he'll take that fight. I think he'll take that fight because that'd be the biggest payday for him. But I think Azim, and for Azim, and I sort of contradicted myself because Azim he got more chance to go again, but they're going to think we don't need it. But I think they want to keep building him as this undefeated, unbeatable product. And they promote him the right way. They give him the right test at the right time. He's becoming an all-rounded fighter. I don't think they want to just jump the gun too quick now for him. I always think he'd be very organic with him. He'd just keep going up the levels and maybe skip a level. But I think they've had to slow down a bit because they did get the European level a bit too quick, and they realised that we're good at this level, but we've seen he's not as effective as he was when he's blasting everyone out of there. So he's learning his trade. Let him learn his trade to continue. He got loads of time. So I don't think they will. Dalton Smith, they'll take the fight, but they want a world title fight as well. So they'll want too much money for that fight, I think. So no one's avoiding each other, but they'll just, the wants and the needs of either camp, I don't think will align. That's the truth of it.
No, I find that pretty convincing, actually. And it won't be that, it absolutely won't be that the fighters don't want to do it, but I don't think it'll even be that the teams don't want to do it and someone's finding a way out, negotiating their way out of it. I just think it just doesn't quite marry up at the moment. Hopefully it will do in the future.
Needs to, do they?
No,
Needs
not really.
From their
they've both got other options, haven't they?
Okay. If it's not
Doom and
going
gloom,
to be
isn't it?
next, no. I think we always try and give it, from the as much of a
but they're both
possible.
really good, aren't they? And why couldn't it be the case that 2 or 3 more wins each down the line, they might be able to do it for a world title, or why not? I am pretty optimistic about those two because they're stepping up and stepping up and stepping up. You could argue that Dalton winning the British outright, there were other things he was hoping to arrange. Looked like he was maybe stagnating, and then he did what he did in his last fight.
Yeah.
So they're ticking all the boxes.
Do you know the way he drops a Peter? Like I had to go, Sean O'Toole, come to me in Saudi and went, you said he criticised the system about that shot. I do my head in. I was punching him in the face. And you're watching it, so you were that close in that calf in Saudi. But he didn't understand what I was saying. I said he hit him with that shot 99 times out of 100. That shot doesn't drop Cepeda. But he'd seen it from so far out. It was a praise, not criticism. Dalton Smith seen the gap from so far out, and he closed the distance so quick that Cepeda wasn't even aware it was coming. You know what I mean? Like that like a straight shot to the body, you can tense for that almost all the time. You can see it, unless it's a real heavy shot. But Dalton Smith's not a Julian Jackson, is he? He's seen the gap so far, and he just slid in the distance, went bam, just so quick. And it was just like, no one saw it. And worst of all, Cepeda never saw it. He was done. And this is a guy who's tough, who can get up and win fights, not just get up and compete. And I just thought that it was unbelievably class. All right.
If it's not going to be Dalton Smith next for Adam Azim, who is it going to be?
I think it could well be Harlem Eubank. Yeah. I think people just all around, everybody saw the merit in that, because Harlem Eubank will absolutely believe he will win that fight. He's not looking at that as being anything other than a win for him, and he then, in the snakes and ladders business that they're in, he jumps above Adam Azim. For him it's perfect because he probably hasn't been able to get the fights that he's wanted, so you take this one, win this one, slipstream above Azim, kind of appropriate his levels and achievements, if you like. That's the game, isn't it? So that's what he'll be thinking. They were thinking about Brighton for it, I know that. And it was pretty much going to happen, I think, until the injury, and then things went in different directions. But that one for me it still makes a lot of sense.
How does that fight go, Barry, if that does happen next?
I think I fancy Azim. I would, but he'll struggle with the movement, the intelligence of Harlem, I think, a little bit. Just the speed of his jab and the size of him. I mean, you can't underestimate how big he is, Azim. He's massive. His neck's like that. He's huge, and his shoulders are big. And I think his figure intimidates you. So I think it's somewhere, even though he's boxed in Flint, he's sort of like, I don't know whether he has, but for me, I think Eubanks just watched Leonard versus Hagler and gone, I'm going to box like that my whole career. From the shorts to the boots to the flurries to the movement, he just boxes that fight all the time, and he does it so well. And he's done it since I remember it was like in the pandemic we were doing shows up in Doncaster, in Production Park it was called.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did a couple, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And he, from there he's become a different person, and just boxing really well. And I thought, that's the first time I really looked at him and thought, actually, this kid he's a championship fighter. Actually, I don't know what level he'd go to, but he's a championship fighter, and he boxes that way. So that will cause Azim trouble, where he'll move, change direction, stop, flurry, move again. But I do think Azim can walk him down. I think the maturity he showed in this fight against Ohara Davies, if he improves on that, which he has been doing in every fight, because he has the youth and he has the right people in his corner, the people you fucking love. But they're the right people for him. I think they're
get
calm.
Me in trouble with Grant Smith, you will.
What's that?
You get me in trouble with Grant Smith.
He thinks you're shit, Grant. The other shame of it is.
Anyway,
but so I do think I think at some point he gets Harlem where he wants him, and either beats him on points quite wide in the end, or after a tricky start, or stops him late, which is a big call actually, because Harlem's looked solid throughout. But I think Azim has a little bit of special thing about him, where people haven't seen it late, so they tend to go off the boil a little bit, how special he's going to be. But he's stepped up levels, and he's a kid. He's still a kid. And I do think, he's ready for that next sort of maturity step. I don't know if the terminology is right there. That next step of growing up.
Yeah.
Filling out a little bit. And
I thought he looked different this fight week
Yeah.
to how I'd seen him
looked good.
before. Yeah,
Physically,
but I just thought
made the weight
almost
well.
in his face. I don't know what it was, but I looked at him and just saw he just looked a bit more like a man than when I've seen him before. Just a little bit more of a kind of. I'm not talking about the weight either. There just seems to be just a little bit more of a kind of hardness to him.
Steeliness.
Yeah, it's hard to explain really.
Yeah.
He just looked a little bit more kind of not weathered, but just sort of just tougher. Just a bit more seasoned.
And that shows in the performance.
Yeah, and when fighters are that age, you do see it, don't you? You've seen them 6 months previous, or I'd seen him around, but I hadn't seen him box obviously since the last time he was in the ring, which was a good few months ago. And at that age, often that happens. You fast forward 7-8 months, and you see them the next time in fight week, and you think, oh, what's happened to you in the last few months?
Hasn't he grown?
Well, whatever it is that happened is good, but you now just look. You just look a bit sort of wiser, and there just wasn't that kind of like maybe naivety that is there when you're young. Now he's like, no, I'm a fully fledged pro now, and I know exactly what this is.
And he paced the fight better.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I mean, he's seemingly done that in his last few. I mean, Enoch Paulson was 5 rounds, but before then, Frank Petitjean 10 rounds. Aaron Fanyon, which I think will turn into a quite a good win down the line, was 10 rounds. And then obviously Santos Reyes, another 10 rounder. But anyway, moving on elsewhere on the card, not quite the main event, but after the main event, we saw the British and Commonwealth light heavyweight titles up for grabs. They were claimed by Lewie Edmondson by majority decision. Barry, going to come to you first. The right decision?
I don't think it was. I mean, you want to be careful not to criticise the fighter because they might tell you off. No, because they don't score the fight. I thought Edmondson did really well. Stepping up a level and never been nowhere near that distance before. Showed loads of good qualities. But ultimately, I think the way boxing that way, I know better than most. You've got to win rounds a bit clearer than what he was given. I thought. So I thought Azeez won the fight, but I also think the reason why Edmondson got it was Azim's fault. Aziz's
Didn't help
fault.
you there, going from Azim to Azeez.
Don't help me. But I think Dan. I think Dan could have done a bit more. I think as well. I think there was the rounds there. He's known for his engine and wearing you down and making you work hard. And there was rounds there where there seemed to be a lull in Edmondson, and he never swallowed that space like he could have. Could have increased the tempo, and that allowed Edmondson then to find the second wind and finish, as we said this off air, so I'm nicking all your stuff, but finish strong, finish the stronger, arguably. So yeah, so maybe he'll regret not putting his foot on the gas when he could have, but I still thought he won. I still thought he won quite handedly, not convincingly, but I thought he was wide enough, 3 or 4 points maybe. I think. There
was a point off as well, wasn't there? For
yeah. So without the point off, he won on all 3 cards.
Yeah, which I couldn't see at the time. I again don't want to kind of spend the whole time slating the decision. I don't think we've seen worse, obviously, and it wasn't a fight that was very high on quality or indeed action. But I did feel like Dan Azeez potentially on the front foot, and he was doing a little bit more. His nothing was a little bit more than Lewie Edmondson's nothing at times, I felt.
Yeah, I think I would probably agree with that. I did find it, as I was watching it and as we're getting towards the end, and then when the bell went, thinking to myself, I really don't know. Like, this could go anywhere. I did feel in the second half that when you've got rounds where no one's really landing much clean or not a lot clean, and it's hard to pick between them on that front, then it does matter who's coming forward and who's trying to make the fight more. You can't give somebody rounds just for doing that, as we constantly say. But when you go to secondary or tertiary criteria past effective punching, then it matters. And I thought he was doing that more than Edmondson. But as I was watching it, and then as I've been thinking about it the last couple of days, what a performance from Edmondson, because he'd only been 8 rounds once before, and that was a fight that he controlled against Joel McIntyre, good solid fighter, but he'd won pretty much every round. And he's gone into a fight where he's probably thinking, I'm going to have to do 12 here. And he's never done it before. He's never done it at that level, in a really competitive fight. And he navigated his way through it, as it turned out, because he got the decision perfectly, because he didn't allow Azeez to get into the rhythm that he likes to get into. And sometimes you look at it and think, oh, what's he doing wrong? Azeez there. But then you just think, but Edmondson's not really letting him do that. And at halfway, I thought he's beginning to feel it, Edmondson. That's fine. He would be. Then I thought, he's not really doing enough here. Is he too worried about going the distance and he's dropping these rounds and he's going to have too much to do? And then, like Barry said, he did finish strong. And I feel like he had it in his own mind all the time, exactly how he was going to do it, and he just stuck to it. Because I wouldn't say he ignored his corner, but the corner with 2 or 3 rounds left were kind of saying to him, you've got to win these last few, you've got to win these last few. And I made them right, and I'm sure he did too, but I think he was thinking to himself, all right, don't panic, I know. And then in the final round, they were telling him, not that he needed a knockdown or anything, but again, they were reinforcing that message. And I think he did win that final round, but he won it with the confidence of a man who felt like he was winning anyway. That's what he looked like, didn't he?
Yeah. He's right as well.
Yeah, and he was right. And he was right. So when he got the decision, I just thought, fair play to you, because that is, that's not to be underestimated. The fact that he just got no experience over the championship distance. And to be honest with you, he had no experience of a really competitive fight before that. And he got it done.
It looked as though, while we were watching it, the first 4 rounds, he was wary of potentially, 12 rounds for the first time, and then those middle 4 rounds, it looked as though Azeez was starting to get on top of him, and then, as you said there, he kind of saved enough for the last 4 rounds, and I thought he won 3, or I've even given 2 of the 4.
And he switched it up, didn't he? Because he started, and George and Matt, who were working with me, said, look, he needs to start looking for those kind of uppercuts, because what he was doing was, he was mainly boxing southpaw, but he'd kind of throw a jab and then move straight in behind it with a left hand kind of into the body, step quite wide with it, go straight onto the shoulder. And Azeez isn't that guy who can just back up and give that half step and create space for himself. So he's picking these punches which are shots to nothing almost, because like I say, he ends up straight on the shoulder. And that just destroyed Azeez's kind of rhythm. But it was hard to see if they were really landing. So are they enough? You couldn't really figure it out, but...
And when you're watching at home, you're seeing all the holding, and that sort of puts you against him, because I'm not scoring the fight round by round, that's the truth, so I think Azim won by 3 or 4 points, but I'm not scoring it round by round, so who knows? So actually my scorecard's bollocks. But it's just the impression I felt, because he was holding a lot when they got in close, and it just puts you against him a little bit, I think. So I thought Azeez.
Damn.
I thought Azeez was a little bit unlucky, I thought, on the night, but Edmondson changed his life now. He's had a real stop-start career. I covered his early career. A real talented kid. You see the ability he had, but no real momentum in his career. And just thought he's going to be one of those guys who's going to disappear from the sport. And you're going to go, I remember him.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be one of those, because he just thought he could never really get like a real good run. But now he's a champion, isn't he? So it all changes for him now. Yeah,
that's only his 10th fight as a pro. British and Commonwealth champion in your 10th fight. I mean, it's
5 years.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it?
It is, and it's a good story. And for Azeez, he would have won the title outright if he'd won on the weekend. And you look at what's happened to him this year, and it's a great illustration of how difficult this sport is, because he'd had an amazing ride and he'd earned it, all of it. And then this year, he gets up to that world level against Buatsi, which you have to describe it as that, because it was the final eliminator for a world title. Did probably what people expected, which was he was very competitive, wholehearted, but Buatsi was better than him and won. Then he was flat in his comeback and got a draw. And then on the weekend, a decision which could have gone his way didn't. And I'm not saying prior to this year he got a load of decisions that he didn't deserve, because that isn't the case. But it's such fine margins when you get to a certain level. You don't need... It's not like you're relying on outrageous slices of good luck, or that Saturday was an outrageous slice of bad luck. When it's that tight, you need the rub of the green. And he didn't get it on Saturday. And now he's 35 years old, and he's just lost at domestic level to a 9-0 fighter. And that's going to be hard for him now. And
it's hard for boxers, because you don't have like football, you can turn it around at the end of the season. KFC just won 5-0, won one game before that in the season, but you can turn it around over a period of time. In boxing, you can't. I mean, you if you have another loss or another bad performance then you're just knocked on the level, and then you're not, your phone's not ringing. If it is ringing, you're like a late notice replacement against a guy you think shouldn't even be at your level, but is then defeated on his way up, and you become cannon fodder for people. And quite usually the decline is steep, so he needs to take the biggest fight he can take possible now, take a gamble, I think, because the financial, unfortunately for Dan Azeez, outside of him winning fights, he's not a sellable product. I mean, no, like most fighters aren't, to be honest. No, he haven't got that other thing around he haven't got a name or an X Factor type of thing about him, or he's getting work on the quality of a product of what he's achieving, on his wins, winning titles and stuff like that, and beating people who he shouldn't have beat. But now, like a Tyler Denny situation, really. Now, where do they go? No one wants them because they're still hard fights. So, in the end, someone who wants to step up, who wants to take that real gamble to go from here to here, like Edmondson, a big step up, will go, I'll take him. And then you start losing to those fighters, and at least that was for a meaningful title, but you start losing to those fighters for non-meaningful titles, and you slowly disappear. And your money goes down dramatically, by the way. That's the worst. Then you're taking fights for, and I don't know what the money, just say you're taking fights for 50 grand, and then it doesn't go 35 grand, it goes to 5 grand. That's the big jump. Like it's that sort of jump, and you just go, what, a 10 rounder for 6 grand when I was getting 35, 55, 100 or whatever they're getting. It's a massive jump, and you just go, I'm not doing that. But then if you don't do it, you're never gonna get any work again. So you have to take that risk, and then you start getting beat for 6 grand when you were getting beat for 50 grand. It's like, you're like, fucking hell.
No, it's brutal, isn't it?
It breaks your heart. Yeah,
it is snakes and ladders.
I'm hoping that's not going to happen to him.
No, but it is just such fine margins. If he got the decision on Saturday, then everything's completely different. And he's now the British and Commonwealth champion again, and he's won the Lonsdale belt outright. And he's thinking to himself, okay, great, I've had a little bit of a blip this year, but I can get back up to that next level now, back towards world level. Here we go. Even though a decision might have papered over a few cracks in the performance, but they always do, don't they? Nobody analyses a victory as much as they analyse a defeat. So the problem with boxing is that you really are as good as your last fight, to a level which is just not, or you are as valuable as your last performance or last result. To an extent that's just not the case in other sports.
But also, we say that, it's a sport where you can just pick people who just believing in yourself, just keep believing in yourself, and you're not bad, you are good, and what you do is good, and you just there, and that self-belief can still get you there, get you back.
Oh yeah, no, Dan Azeez is not a boo-hoo poor me merchant. He won't be feeling sorry for himself. He'll be fuming that he didn't perform better. And we will see him again. I am confident about that.
Before we move things on, obviously it was a massive win for Lewie Edmondson. Where next for him? Obviously now British and Commonwealth champion. He's going to have a target on his own back.
That's a good call, actually.
That is a good question, because
all light heavyweights seem to be beyond that.
He'll get to choose his next fight, won't he? He'll be granted a voluntary. I'm pretty sure.
That was a voluntary, was it?
That was a vacant title, so maybe not actually. Maybe not.
Mandatory stuff.
Yeah. Who would that be?
Again, because you can't mention any of those the top 3 or 4 light heavyweights.
No.
I tell you who won.
Ezra Taylor could be somebody like him.
I tell you who did win and didn't. This is a ridiculous announcement. Who did win but didn't look great.
We're going to come on to it in a second. Anthony Yarde, who I think probably has, with respect to Lewie Edmondson, as we just mentioned there, he's going to have bigger fish to fry, isn't he? He's going to want to be looking up with respect to Lewie Edmondson. I think that would be perceived to be a step back from him. Ezra Taylor, I think, is a good suggestion. Who else is in and around that level? Willie Hutchinson? Willie Hutchinson on the back of... I think
he would feel that Willie's not going beyond that.
Willie should, really, just get out those, but I think he'll be thinking, I'm with all these guys now, because, again, the Boazzi fight was competitive. Yeah. So, he's thinking I'm world level now. That's what I think. I think
people tend to do that, though, don't they?
Yeah, but they're all a little bit below world level, in my opinion. If you put Bivol and Beterbiev as the world level status, but they will think that, and rightly so. That was a world title, wasn't it? WBO interim or regular or something.
Not for the
Boazzi thing,
I think
whatever.
it was something like
something like that. Okay, it's a shit in it, but no, but I mean, but it's that sort. No, one of those. If that title gets chucked away in the rematch against Bivol and Beterbiev, then Boaty's the world champion.
What about Ben Whittaker, or do we have to see him fight Liam Cameron?
Oh, gotta see that.
Yeah, I think we'd have to see the rematch against
because
Cameron.
That was a fight that Lewie Edmondson was chasing very, very hard.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's
Cameron's
the
the fight. There you go.
And that's the thing. He's been calling everybody out, Lewie Edmondson, and he just couldn't quite understand why nothing was happening, because he was happy to fight anybody. I think he was thinking, look, what's wrong with me? You know, I do sell tickets. I've got something to say. I'll fight anybody.
Yeah,
what's wrong with me? And then you get this chance, and the titles were added quite late, and I think he was expecting originally this to be an overweight, the contest of like 12-10, 12-11, something like that. So he had to adjust to that. I saw him just before the weigh-in and said, "How are you?" Like, as in the weight, and he just said, "Yeah, good."
I need a drink.
But I was quite surprised. Like, he looked good.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, all right, like he did have that kind of eye of the tiger of a man who knew he'd been calling this for a long time. This was it, and yeah, I'm repeating myself now, but given the lack of experience he had in that kind of a fight over that kind of duration, I think he absolutely delivered. He needed the rub of the green with the decision, and he got it. And we'll see what he does now.
Well, you mentioned Ben Whittaker, did he fight Liam Cameron? Liam Cameron, that's a great fight for Edmondson, because Liam Cameron would love to get a British title. Like, and if the injury keeps
him out, and he has a new team,
and also that wasn't like a war of attrition for Cameron. So like, he could go again soon, couldn't he? And Edmondson will want to go against as soon as he can.
Yeah.
Because he's in a position he could earn some money at last. So that's a really good fight. That's a really good and an entertaining scrap as well. There.
Well, one fight that you just mentioned there, as you correctly alluded to, Barry was in action this past weekend. Mr. Anthony Yarde scored a knockdown in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah,
that was pretty much as good as it got.
Good shot, wasn't it?
Across the 10 rounds against a Iron Man in Ralph Vilcans, very much tweeted very much from the Myris Bradis school of Latvian hard bastards. Hung tight in there for 10 rounds, and really at stages of that fight gave as good as he got.
Yeah, he did. That was one of those fights. I saw those banana skins, and it wasn't, but it could have been. Yeah, I thought he was just going to walk through him, like as we all sort of did. Really, I didn't do massive research into the kids, so I wasn't working the show. You probably didn't. Obviously, you must have. But
there wasn't loads to watch of him.
No. And he looked okay, didn't he, structurally? But I thought
basic, but looked okay.
So the way Yarde is, he's just going to, when Yarde hits him, he's going to, what happened?
In the first 10 seconds. I felt Yarde, I think Yarde on the in his post-fight interview was very good, and he said, knocking him down in the first 10 seconds was the worst thing that could have happened, because I thought, I'll just get rid of this guy whenever. And obviously it wasn't quite that straightforward.
And it shouldn't be in boxing, but you do have, when you've boxed at a higher level and this fight is just to get you back in to box at a higher level again, you can overlook fighters and you can think I can play with them a little bit more. And I think he just and it's hard to break the rhythm of a fight for anyone, but you should have just intensified the pace after 4 or 5 rounds. But he fights the way he fights. I thought he was more hittable than usual, and that's maybe lack respect of his opponent. Yeah, he didn't look fantastic, but then you got to give him that leeway that it was because he thought he was in against a guy who was going to fall over. So you had to judge. You judge him on that performance. You just go, well, he's nowhere near where he was, and there's a decline. You can go that rabbit hole. There's a decline, and if he steps up a level, now everyone's going to beat him. But I don't think that's the Yarde that we're going to see in his next fight. I don't think. Name me a fighter that I didn't really look into, and I should have before this. That Beterbiev has beat, who's gone on to do anything good after Beterbiev beat him. That's a lot of Beterbiev in that.
There isn't anybody.
No, there isn't.
So maybe he just beats the fight out of you, and then you're never the same again. That happens. I don't think that was the case on Saturday night.
I don't either.
But you don't know.
No,
you just don't know, do you? Like, I was thinking that, and I should have done some work on it and had a look. But
it's a quick answer.
You don't pay enough.
It's nobody.
For extra work.
there is nobody who's responded well to a mauling at the hands of Beterbiev.
Yeah, I could really take something from that. Broken eye socket.
But maybe he can be that guy, because I think Saturday was, as he looks back on it this week, and even after the fight, the post-fight interview, like you mentioned, then I saw him outside in the car park when I was leaving, and we had a quick chat. And
was he having a fag? Even as a fag,
he was having a kebab. And he was just saying, he was just very sensible. He just said, I think knocking him down that early didn't really do me any favours, and I kind of agreed with him. And then I said, funnily enough, like when you got to the last round and you'd finally forgotten about the idea of stopping him and you just boxed, I said, like, you boxed well in that round. He said, I know, like, you should have just done that from the beginning. And he's right, he should have done it from the beginning. But I think it's one of those ones where it's quite easy to look back on it and feel like it should have been, and feel like, oh God, I fell into a really obvious pothole there, which was knock him down early, feel like I could take him out at any point, and then just try and do that. And I thought he was a bit unlucky on not to get a bit more on the card, Vilcans, because there were rounds in there where I never felt like Yarde wasn't going to win, but there were rounds in there where he was lucky to take him out, and whilst he wasn't doing it, Vilcans was landing plenty on him and winning those rounds, just because winning a few rounds in there, just because those punches weren't really having any effect on him. They still count, they were still landing.
They weren't pitter-patter shots as well. That right hand, especially that you throw, that sort of chopping down right hand, was a really good shot.
I mean, he did really. The way you call the fighters, and Bengay and Vilcans, 1-1, one lost. Fair play to them, and then Edmondson. It was a good night for the away corner.
I tell you what, though,
Shannon Courtney lost.
Yeah, well. I tell you what, you watch that's a great sign. Anthony Yarde's great signing for Sky, great signing for a boxer, and then you go, oh.
Well, yeah, I mean that was
not the Yarde we're used to seeing.
That was kind of where I was going to go with this. Obviously, it was I don't want to say an audition, but certainly a platform for which Mr. Yarde could use to express himself ahead of a bout with, of course, ringside observer Joshua Buatsi. And unfortunately, it didn't really whet the appetite or set the pulses racing as we would have hoped it would have.
No, it didn't, and that was unfortunate. And that's, when you're looking to plan ahead a little bit and you get Buatsi down there at ringside, and that's what it's set up for. It's important that you do then deliver, because however many people watched it on Saturday, and I don't know what the figures were, but it was coming in off the back of a Premier League football match, and the first fight in was basically Yarde, because I think, main event on Sky joined at 8 o'clock, which was...
He's an Arsenal boy as well, isn't he?
Yeah, it went a bit mental, didn't it? Like, because the heavyweight fight came on earlier than it was supposed to, I think, or like I saw like a graphic that was supposed to say the heavyweight fight was going to be 7 o'clock, and it was earlier.
Yeah.
TKV fight.
Yeah, so Sky main event joined, which is the post Bournemouth Arsenal audience. Right, that joined at 8 o'clock, and that was probably in about round 11.
Yeah, I was watching the other channel.
Yeah, that was round 11 of McKinson and Bengay, and then you go straight into Yarde. So, that was perfect timing for him, really, and it just didn't quite work out.
Switch it on, and knock down in the first round.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of best laid plans, isn't it? Really, but well, when I spoke to him, I think he was looking at it and just thinking, it was a bit rueful about it, just thinking, I knocked him down in the first 10 seconds, but I probably should have realised that he wasn't really hurt. He was just caught a bit cold, and then I got a bit one-punch happy, and by the end I kind of was doing what I should have been doing much earlier. He just kind of had that sort of vibe about him. But it's 10 rounds, and he's back, and
for the first time on the same platform as Buatsi.
Yeah.
So that fight's close in there, but they can't quite align their careers, can they? Their performances.
Yeah, that was the night. If you'd have gone in there, blew him out in 3 rounds, and you could have got
Buatsi's come off that
I know
win.
Buatsi's not the type to get in the ring and make a commotion, but still,
he was shouting at somebody, wasn't he?
Yeah, Lewie Edmondson after the fight. Which, I mean, we've already spoken about kind of who's looking at where. I mean,
but you know what I mean? When Buatsi, like at the beginning, Buatsi, they talked about that fight, and Yarde was knocking everyone out, but it was lower level, and Buatsi was the Olympian, and then you go, well, they're night and day. Yeah. And then Yarde came right up, and Buatsi was getting performances that were just too safety first, and you go, I'd fancy Yarde now, and then Yarde just covered their performance, and then bet the BF, and you go, well, I'd fancy Yarde, and then Buatsi, and you're like, they can't get there, can they?
It's sort of, I mean, it perfectly exemplifies some of the issues that we were talking about earlier with Adam Azim and Dalton Smith.
It really does.
Sometimes there is not a perfect time to have a fight like that, and you will, if you look and wait for the perfect time, you may not get the fight, or you may get the fight at a time that's really not perfect, but you have to do it, like Calm Brook, because before you do, it'll be gone.
With that one, although I was saying earlier on, we need to be careful that all big domestic fights, we don't just rely on Riyadh season. I feel like that one probably would have to be a Riyadh season fight if they're interested in it, just because it's kind of like a lower level Beterbiev Bivol in that I don't see how it, for what they would feel they would need to get paid for it, I don't know how it pays for itself.
It's such a shame though, because I really feel like that is a fight that could and should have been able to do that. Like you've got South London against East London, you've got two really good fighters who've been built alongside each other on, let's be honest, on TNT, formerly BT and Sky, so they've had plenty of eyeballs on them throughout their career. Over the last 2 or 3 years, obviously, Yarde's gone and boxed here. Boatsie's not been as active. He had his promotional issues, so they've kind of gone away. But 2, 3, 4 years ago, if you'd have said, "Oh yeah, I'm not sure there'll be any money for," not you said it, paraphrasing, but it wouldn't be money to make Boatsie Yarde in London at the O2. You'd have been like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Of course there is. That's a fight where when you consider that you had Lawrence Okoli and Isaac Chamberlain in front of 11,000 people at the O2 a few years ago.
No, I know, but
I know now, but a few years ago, it would have been unimaginable to think.
But they want 2 million each.
But this is the thing; it would have to be. It would have to be on pay-per-view, and what numbers would it do? And I do think like kind of the comparison with Beterbiev Bivol is sort of relevant, but at a lower level, because those are. What numbers did that really do on an amazing fight, and we're also glad that we got it, but we wouldn't have got it if it hadn't have been for Riyadh season, because whoever put that on Beterbiev Bivol would have done their absolute bollocks.
Yes. Isn't it mad though? One of the best fights in world boxing, and you can't make a penny on it. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean, like. But either way, like
but what's the yard? It's just like on pay-per-view, and they would. Their expectations money-wise would mean that it would have to be on pay-per-view. Would Sky be able to do it?
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to that.
I agree with it now. It's just looking back 2, 3, 4 years ago.
But it sells an arena, I think. It does. I
definitely.
Yard's been a real sellable product for a long time. Yarde has, and Boatsie's been like Boatsie's. I've been disappointed with Boatsie's career because I think he's so potentially brilliant. But we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it all click for him on one night. I don't think.
Not yet. No,
not yet. And it might never come. And it might come. I think when it does come, you want it to come in the Yarde fight, or he certainly does. Yeah. And we want it to, because I think that brings the best out in Yarde. That's a world class fight. That's 2 domestic fighters boxing at world level. Whether it's for a world title or not, it's still world level. And they're the fights you want to see. I mean, that can't. You can't marinate that fight anymore.
Their take on it, speaking to Tunde during the week, was that it was going to happen, and then Josh took the fight against Hutchinson, which they understood. But this year, with the belts tied up with Beterbiev and Bivol for that first fight, which then got postponed, and then you always kind of felt like there could well be a rematch. This was the time for them to just think, well, we'll just fight a couple of times then. Why not? We'll do this. If it's a good fight, we'll do it again.
What you've got to do is align yourself with the IBF, because they're definitely going to jip out.
He could have boxed the final eliminator for the IBF.
Yeah, but
he could have boxed for the world title.
They're the ones who would jip out of a rematch of unification. They're the first ones to go, well, we don't care, because we're going to manage the fight.
Waiting to see what happens with the IBF. Because Michael Effort was ordered for it, but now obviously I think the IBF are now considering allowing the rematch to take place. Before we move on, because we've still got to preview this weekend's card, Boatsie Yarde, who wins, Barry?
It's really difficult to answer that, because it depends which Boatsie, which Yarde turn up, but it really does, because
I flip-flopped. I don't flip-flop, do I? I flip-flop with this because different versions of the one beats the other one. So right now, on the last performance, my initial guy at the very, very beginning, and they spoke about early back with 2017, probably maybe early, I said Boatsie.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm gonna say Boatsie again, but Yarde has shown the thing with Yarde has shown all his qualities in defeat. So it's a really hard gauge. I think against Kovalev he stepped up a level, massive level, but he was nowhere near, shouldn't have been there. But showed so many good qualities in defeat. And he got knocked on the jab and all the stuff on the corner, going for it.
He very nearly won.
I think he had to go for it. I mean, but he showed loads of qualities, loads of toughness. He was in the fight. He was losing. I barely gave him a round, but in every round he was losing, he was having a really good go against a guy who might have been like drunk the night before, but no, I'm joking. No, am I? No, but it's still got one of the best jabs in boxing, Kovalev, and to get around that jab is very difficult. And then against Beterbiev, and the rematch against Lyndon Arthur, he got that right. He boxed the way he should have boxed all his whole career. He rather than wait for the opportunities, he created the opportunities and blasted them out of there. And then against Beterbiev, he showed so much balls like that. Like he was just phenomenal. He made Beterbiev work for everything. And in the end, of course, he succumbed to it, and rightly so. But I mean, up until that point, he was in the fight. He was showing it. He wasn't winning the fight at all, but he was showing so much steel. And I thought, he has qualities you can teach or give people. He has them. He has that innate toughness. You just can't give people. You can't train for that. You haven't got it. But Buatsi, if we can all click for Buatsi, he is beyond brilliant, I think. And you tend to think that might be the fight that he has to and will show it, that injection of pace that he doesn't. Buatsi needs a rocket up his ass. He does need Virgil Hunter's a brilliant trainer, I know he is, but I think he needs the fireman. Yeah. He needs that. I think he needs that. I he won't want it. He won't want it. He won't like the calm approach, but he needs a fucking. This is it. This is your life.
At times he needs a good. Yeah. He needs a good Gallaghering, as we might describe it. Joe Gallagher, someone. So Yeah. Someone. I mean, that combination is not going to materialise, but my God, I would be interested in it if it did.
Yeah, I think so. So I think that's. I think if we ever see that Buatsi, which we haven't seen yet, then you have to say like he would find a way around the power of Anthony Yarde and he just would, and the strength. He'd find a way around it. But yeah. So I pick him, but I'm not again. Just ask me after the next fights.
Well, hopefully, maybe the next fight will be against each other.
We have to be closer than ever because they're for the first time they're on the same platform. So surely we're closer than ever, and with Riyadh seasons as well. They're looking for all the best fights to make, and luckily for us, it's quite UK centric. A lot of the shows. So the next one in Riyadh in November is not. Bilham Smith's still on there, so it's still always a British connection somehow. It gives us more of a chance to see that fight happening. Whether it be over here, over there, we get to see it, and let's be thankful of that.
Absolutely. Right, okay, we are going to move on past that card, but just before we do, just a quick review of highlights. Michael McKinson, unfortunately, coming up short against Talani and Bengay for the vacant IBO World Welterweight title. Great performance from Talani and Bengay. A classic away fighter. I thought he was unfortunate against Suleiman Sissoko.
Yeah, me too.
I thought he beat Suleiman Sissoko, and I thought he was fantastic against Michael McKinson.
He was.
Jamie TKV, 6-round stoppage win over Franklin Ignatius in not the best fight I've ever seen in my life, but still a dominant win for Jamie TKV. Francesca Hennessy, I thought, boxed very, very well against her Brazilian opponent, Ana Vaz de Moraes. And, of course, a professional bow for Sam Hickey, who got off to life in the pre-ranks with a 4-round win over one of everybody's favourite journeyman, John Mosquera. So that was Saturday night at the Copperbox Arena on Sky. Moving over to the States, and for the return of Tim Tszyu, who, of course, fresh off his loss to Sebastian Fundora. But this was a slightly different loss, obviously coming up short against newly crowned or previously newly crowned IBF Super Welterweight champion Bakhram Murtazaliev, who produced one of the breakout performances of this year, or indeed any year, with a crushing 3rd-round stoppage win. Barry, that was brutal from Bakhram Murtazaliev.
It was. And then you get that sometimes when the guy who can punch, as Tszyu can, when they make no dent, no impression, all of a sudden, and we said this earlier in the program, when you're winning, you don't analyse. You said you don't analyse your performances. I know he lost the last one, but I mean that was the cut. They'll just say if it wasn't for the cut, he would have won. He probably would have, but how defensively poor you are, how easy you are to hit. And I tell you what, the two main knockdowns, it was 3, wasn't there? 4. But the first one and the last one were totally his fault. Just really poor technique. So you throw a left hook to the body, like you don't lean your body. I'll take this. This is better than this. You don't lean your body over and look to reach. That's what you got caught with the left hook himself. Because as soon as you lean, your shoulders move, your body distorts, so your arm's going to give. So you just, when you lean over, this arm either comes here or goes here. So you build a gap. So if you turn into the shot, even if you're leaning forward, this arm protects yourself. So when the other guy throws the left hook, you block it in naturally, and you're also throwing your left hook to the body. So you're safe when you're throwing. But that should be an obvious. You have to slide into the body. You don't lean over to throw left to the body. You have to slide your front foot in, and you have to bring your whole body and turn the body away to get the lever for the shot. Do that, and he maybe knocks him out. But he certainly doesn't get knocked out. But he didn't. He just leaned over, thinking, he's seen the gap. He leaned over, and as he's gone like that, Murta, whatever his name is, goes whap.
For the purposes of this one, we'll call him Bakhram.
Thank you, Bakhram. Yeah. But he just went whack, a lovely shot, and he's defenseless. Tszyu, and he's not looking, because he's looking at the target. He's looking at that target there, not looking what's coming back. So he gets hit with a clean shot he doesn't see, and did well to get up with the thank of the referee.
Yeah. I think we'll come on to talk about some of the other knockdowns. But I felt like it really could have been stopped up.
Yeah, I think so. And the last knockdown was exactly the same. Yeah. Exactly the same scenario. He looked for the same shot with the same poor technique, and paid the price against a guy who was massive for the weight. He was huge, by the way. He looked like a light heavyweight, and was strong and accurate and calm and everything. He was absolutely fantastic.
A lot was made going into the fight, Andy, about Bakhram Murtazaliev being kind of, 154 pounds, I think, is one of the more slept on divisions over recent times. And is now, you look at Boachuk against Israel Madrimov is a terrific fight. That's for Usyk versus Fury. Yeah. You put Murtazaliev in with both of those. You've got Virgil Ortiz, who obviously had a brilliant fight. Terence Crawford is a champion at 154 pounds. But it felt like, and being a part of the media, you have to take your own kind of blame for this, that everybody was looking past Bakhram Murtazaliev, and particularly in the for Tim Tszyu, who's he going to box next? Is he going to box in Riyadh? Is he going to box here? And unfortunately, now those questions are very, very different after Saturday night. Do you think that there was any chance at all that they potentially overlooked Bakhram Murtazaliev?
I think there's always a chance that you can, because you look at how many times it would appear that people have done that down boxing history. It's often, and you will always tell yourself that you won't be that person, and then you wake up on a Sunday morning and you realise that you have been. And it's not necessarily a really drastic or noticeable thing. It's certainly not noticeable to you, or you wouldn't do it. But it's not like you'd breeze through camp, just go to the pub and not really training, and every time anybody mentions the opponent, you just toss it off and say, shit, I'm going to beat him. It's just it's a fraction, isn't it?
Well, it does happen sometimes.
It does happen sometimes.
Writing Garcia.
It does happen sometimes, but it can just be that absolute fraction where you're not as afraid of losing as maybe you should be. You're not entertaining that as a possibility and using it as the fuel to drive you during camp. That's what a lot of fighters talk to me about, as you should be. If you don't have that kind of knot of nerves of anxiety about losing, then sometimes you can have a problem. And it doesn't mean you don't train hard. You could train just as hard. You can do the same times, the same everything's in the gym. But just that edge just isn't necessarily there. And if it isn't, and you find yourself in trouble, then that's what happens.
Barry, you mentioned before about Sebastian Fundora, the Fundora fight for Tim Tszyu, and there was, of course, as we all know, the horrendous gash that he's now a V-shaped scar here. There was a coming together in the first round against Murtazaliev at the weekend that had Tszyu backing up very quickly, checking for the blood.
Paranoid, wasn't he? Yeah.
I mean, that looks, from the outside looking in, to have been playing on his mind. The first time that came together, there was a very noticeable reaction. A poker face, it was not.
Might have, but I think if they start looking down that route, I shouldn't have took it because I wasn't ready for this, or like you said, Andy, it was all valid points. I was looking at the next fight ahead. Then you're not going to address the issues that I think poor technique. And you think, you just got the power to hurt everyone, which you have, but some people will hurt and fire back. You come against a big, strong guy there who's calm under pressure and good technique and good counter puncher, as we've seen through that left hook lovely. So that was the issue. Maybe you underestimated what he could do. But not even that. I just think your poor technique. Once you can cope with a good shot, things unravel. Like it's very hard to claw it back because you're hurt. So everything you throw then is a little bit slower, a little bit more either over-focused or no focus. If you're really gone, you have no focus on what you're doing, so you are making mistakes. Or you're trying to be too safe and you overthink everything and it slows you down that way. So you're almost on an autopilot scenario where the other guy, if he's sharp and he's strong and he's big and he's powerful and all those things, can just walk you down and beat you up, and that's what happened, I think. I want to say about Fendora, I don't know why it's in my head. Fendora and his sister Gabrielle, I think his name is. That's got to be the first brother and sister world title combination, hasn't it?
No. Well, I don't know if it's the first. No, it's not, because Erica Cruz and Pitbull Cruz. They had
at the same time. Well
yeah.
Done, mate. Well done.
I think. Could be wrong. I'm sure there'll be some nerds watching.
No, yeah, but no, I don't know why it's on top of my head.
I think,
not the first one to do it. The first one's actually at the same time.
Yeah, I think they had one at the same time.
Fair enough. I think Tszyu can come back. Of course he can come back.
Well, one of the things that I kind of wanted to allude to is you mentioned there about the poor technique. Now, remember when he boxed Terrell Gaucher in his first fight in America, he got dropped by right hand. And I felt like after that, he boxed Tony Harrison, and I thought he boxed well. He boxed Carlos Ocampo, which was kind of a one-round blowout, and then he boxed Brian Mendoza. And I felt we saw a more considered Tim Tszyu in those fights where he was dropping back a little bit more and looking to kind of progressively build things as the fight went on. Now, we didn't see that version of him against Murtazaliev. How much of that was Murtazaliev not allowing him to do that, and how much of that was potentially Tszyu, being a little bit more cavalier for whatever reason?
I think so. I think once you're in big fights and you think especially him now, you think you have to sell yourself a little bit more. Well, and also, when you hit as hard as he does, you're going to dine out on your power. You're going to think, I'll make him feel like you should, like I always say, don't you? Make him feel it early. Get into him. But just, that's the first thing I saw. More than I saw the shot, the way he leaned over to the shot, like just leaned his body over, just trying to reach for it. I just thought, that's really bad. Against someone who didn't panic. I mean, the other fighters are aware, or maybe gets away with it because people go, ooh, like that. They're waiting for the shot and think more about defending rather than about countering. So yeah, but then he's up against a big guy. You can't know you're going to struggle to outbox him from range, and you think I got to slide into this. I got to get close. Just his thought behind getting close was just I'm going to walk into you.
Yeah, I felt like after the first knockdown was a big shot, and he was really hurt from that. After that, it was
just survival mode, isn't it?
Just sort of marching forward and letting the shots
you're making bigger mistakes, because
the writing was on the wall at that point.
We seen it against Joshua, didn't we? Against Dubois, you're literally fighting on autopilot. It's just your courage that's keeping you in the fight, but you're making more mistakes.
You can tell, can't you, when someone they get hit and they stay hit, as we describe it. It's concussion is what it is.
You know what happened? Because when they get up, they look 10 years younger because the expression on their face is like that.
Yeah.
You okay? And they're going, yeah.
Because their powers of recovery fighters are such that if they're not concussed and they are able to recover, it happens fast. Like you see that their eyes are actually okay and their legs have been wobbly, but now they're solid again. But if you don't see that happen relatively quickly, you know that they've been hit and that they've stayed hit. And at that point, it's very, very hard to win a fight from there. I mean, the only thing you can do is reduce your opponent to the same state as you, which is not impossible, but it's hard.
Yeah, and he is that type of fighter, so you could never really see him, getting on the back foot and trying to spoil. And it's just not the way he fights anyway. And when you get hurt and you're badly hurt, I mean, you revert to type, don't you? You don't all of a sudden say, well, I need to try something different here. Yeah. Or if you do, quite often means that you're just going to get knocked out anyway because you're trying to box how you don't box.
For the corner, that's kind of a weird situation because he will continue to come forward and therefore open him up to the possibility of getting knocked out cold, but you also know that he does have the power, even when buzzed, to do that to the other guy, and then you've got a level playing field, and then he could win. So you leave him in that harm's way because of what he's capable of himself. But that's the game they're in.
And also in the same vein as all this conversation, you can't just do something you never do. All right, the sensible thing is now stay on the back foot, just use the jab a little bit, warm yourself back into it. When you don't really do that, and also you're inviting trouble.
And also you add to that a massive concussion, and it's not how you usually box anyway.
But
you can get yourself stopped.
If you train with I say this all the time, people. If you train with your hands up, even if you don't box with your hands up, if you train on, especially on the bag, with keeping your hands tight, when the shit hits the fan, you can keep your elbows tucked in tight, your hands high, your elbows tucked in tight. You can keep a little bit of structure. And also learning the right techniques to throw shots. Which, see, when you have natural power, it disguises so many faults. So like, you don't analyse until things fall out of bed for you, things go wrong. So you don't work on your weaknesses because boxers believe they don't have no weaknesses. Some people, but you should. Well, we're all a product of that. I didn't work on strength because I was fast. I don't need that. I just too fast for everyone. Until you're not, and then you go, I wish I was a bit stronger now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like punches. Punches disease, as some people describe it. They rely on their power, and you will get to a night where that's not enough, and then if you haven't kind of thought about what you will do when that night arrives, you'll get beaten.
Yeah.
But it happens time and time again because as humans, we don't really learn from the mistakes of people who've gone before us, do we? But we just don't.
You should be learning technique all the time. Like people say fundamentals, and it's true. Like you've got to that's what you learn from when you're a kid, and we forget those. I mean, any other sport, even like the top players in football and rugby, they go through basic drills when they're in their warm-ups. Boxing don't. We don't anymore. Shadow boxing, it's just it's freestyle, which is very important, but it's freestyle. I bet you most pros don't even shadow box anymore. But I mean, in front of the mirror, looking at your shape, and even when you're in the ring, imagining someone's in front of you on the bag, you've got to imagine you're fighting somebody and go through that motion and what you're trying to do. Again, technique is right. So you should spend, like every boxer, whatever level you're at, by the way. Listen to me, because I had 20 fights. No, I mean, you should be in the mirror or in the ring, whatever, watching the technique. How you turn. When your hands drop, what happens when your hands drop into throw a left hook, or when you're leaning over like he did, making all your body out of shape and giving a target a hit and not watching what's going on. All these things are like they're schoolboy mistakes that you get away with because you're technically, you've gone past that level. But we forget about the basics because we've gone on to another level now. We're not basic level, we're up here. So we don't have to do those warm-ups anymore because we're fucking up here now because we're brilliant. But every other sport does it. Yeah. And there's a reason for that.
And as we always talk about, the top boys in boxing all have flawless fundamentals.
But I bet you they don't do it. They're just like, but some people are just special. But most of us, and most of them who are really good are not special. They're just good. But I mean, it's the special ones who get away with it. But I mean, the others don't. But even then, and also the ones who have sustainability are the ones who do that and are brilliant as well. Some people are just lucky, but they put the work in.
But I think the best fighters I've watched train when it's not been a kind of media workout. I saw Beterbiev train for about an hour midweek before the fight against Bivol, and we'd kind of requested it through Top Rank Sky, and we're told, you can come. You won't be able to film much at all, and they let us film some southpaw pads, which was kind of hilarious. But he said, but I'm happy for you to come. And so you watched him train properly, basically, and it was just real basics. I remember going to WSB finals 7-8 years ago and just asking if I could tag along to the Cuban training. There was never any, it wasn't even a question of no cameraman, just me. Was how I said to them. I was very clear about that. And like Julio La Cruz, Arlen Lopez, Rabesi Ramirez were there, and you just watch them train. It was just pure basics. It was shadow boxing, no pads, shadow boxing, bag, and that was basically it.
The bag work, there was no pads. I don't know this, I'm making this up. I certainly in the 60s, maybe 70s, people didn't, especially in the UK, barely did pads. I think that was like an 80s thing, pad work. I mean, but the bag is the most important thing. Strength, technique, all that stuff, endurance, all that stuff, it helps you. The bag helps you. Big, heavy bag helps you. Really. It's not good for your knuckles and stuff. But all these things are important. But look, Usyk boxes with his hands up. Bivol boxes with his hands up. Beterbiev boxes with his hands up. Canelo mainly boxes with his hands up. Crawford, even though he's massively athletic, for the most part, when he's any closer to the target, his hands are up. Javante Davis, even people boxers like him, for the most part, their hands are high. There's a pattern here, and people look at Mayweather and other fighters who box with their hands low. Most of his career early on, and soon as someone gets close to him, his hands are up. I mean, Bernal Hopkins, you want to go with all these technically brilliant fighters, hands are high. Everyone's learning the box like this. I mean, having your hand low is great. It's a different angle for attack, and it's hard to defend against. And when you have power, you can set someone up by coming over you and go whack. But boxing, that's how you should learn how to box, and then you work off that, and at the end to get more rhythm, your hands start to go a little bit lower. But for the most part, the top boxers in the world keep a structure, do the basics very well, because that's what works for them most of the time, and then they add on to it in different situations. But for the most part, Usyk's throwing straight punches. Bivol throws straight punches. All Bivol does is throw fucking straight punches.
What you find with a lot of fighters who have that more, who seemingly have that more unorthodox kind of look to them, and this is true of other sports too. Like I watch a lot of cricket, for example, and batting is something that's got a lot of technique. Like the boxing's got a lot of technique, and you can see someone who seems all over the place, but then at the point of impact, everything is exactly where it should be. And that's the same with some punches, isn't it? They might seem everywhere, but then if you froze it at the point where they're letting it go, it's exactly where it should be. How they get there is a bit odd.
At some point, they're turning from the shoulder and the hips at the same time. They're going everything's in unison. Like see a golf swing, it looks like it comes like, but ultimately that range from there to there, the technique is like everyone inside the body frame, the shoulders and the hips work together. They push off the back leg and it goes wham for the target. Yeah, that's how you should throw.
Yeah, you can wave the club around as much as you want at the top of your backswing. But you're right. It's like it is true. Like with every sport, it's that point of impact or just before it. Everybody basically does it the same. Who's any good, don't they? Really.
Just a final quick couple on Tim Tszyu and Murtazaliev. We were going to talk about Murtazaliev beforehand, but as soon as we're on this now, I mean, much was made about Tim Tszyu. Obviously, people forget Sebastian Fundora. Short notice, he went from career welterweight Keith Thurman, orthodox, to 6'5", 154 pounder on 2 weeks' notice. Huge credit for that, as well as he got for coming in and boxing somebody like Bakhram Murtazaliev. Despite him being a favourite, still a very good fighter. There was no tune-ups or warm-ups or whatever on the back of that loss to Sebastian Fundora. This feels very different for obvious reasons. Where do we see Tim Tszyu go next? It's a rebuild job for sure, because you're not going to walk into a big fight in the back of a third round stoppage. Not much of a rebuild
though. I think he's got. The thing is, because they can sell it like he got caught early, and then from there he wasn't quite with it, and then they'll say he overlooked the guy, so you can sell it back, and he's a sellable product, I think. So you get him a win just below, somebody can blast out.
Michael Zarafa.
He says a good little name.
Good Australian fight.
In Australia.
But that could be an hard fight for him, see. but something like, if he can get rid of him quite, not early, but conclusively, then he's right back in the mix again, isn't he? That's the truth of it.
Do you think he needs, you mentioned there about his technique, and do you think he needs...
I think so, yeah. I think he's quite, I think mostly he's looked quite good, hasn't he? And again, I haven't noticed it until I noticed it. But I noticed it, I saw that. That might just be, I haven't really studied his technique as a whole, to be honest. So that might be a thing he does all the time. It might just be a thing he did that against that fighter because he was so big, and he struggled. He couldn't really, and he's just seen a gap and leaned into it. But he did it twice. That's the second time he's doing it. But he's already concussed. But he did it twice. So there's a pattern there. If I go and look back at his career, I bet you he's done it out quite often, but got away with it.
Yeah, I mentioned he's been hurt. He's been dropped in the past. Yeah. So it has been something that has been sort of levelled at him. There was much criticism about the corner as well for the Sebastian Fundora fight. So I wonder whether or not we do see some quite sizable changes to his team, but we'll wait and see what happens. But I do want a final discussion on that fight to be on the winner. Of course, we inevitably end up talking about the big favourite, the big star name who got beaten, but he got beaten by a man in there who was doing the beating. It wasn't Tim Tszyu didn't accidentally lose. He got really.
He did trip over and fall onto a glove.
No, he got really run over, really, and there's no other way of looking at it. Andy mentioned earlier on, 154 pounds is as hot a division as there exists in the sport right now. Bakhram Murtazaliev is really in and amongst it now with those big names.
Yeah, he has to be, and deservedly so, because again, it's boxing is a lot of it is about marketability, and I know that in America for a while now, or they went through a spell of feeling like Central Asian fighters, Uzbek fighters, Kazakh fighters, probably off the back of Golovkin, really, and the kind of aura and mystique that was around him with the big drama show and Usyk's Iron Very feel. But it's that kind of thing that, there's something about these guys that we can maybe sell them. But then actually, in reality, it's not really the case because they don't have a fan base and people don't really know who they are. And that kind of that thing that you got with Triple G and you got with Usyk, that works every now and again for someone really pretty special. So he's changed things for himself significantly with that win, and he'll just be looking for the biggest fight he can possibly get off the back of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're struggling for good PR or marketability, knocking out the son of the first ballot Hall of Famer is a pretty good way to.
Yeah, and also, and if you can build him as a monster, and then you got a marketable fighter who can punch like Virgil Ortiz. Then
him against the winner of Madrimov versus him against Boachuk is an unbelievable fight. Like
but that's like one for us, not one for them.
Yeah,
I mean, neither one of those won that fight because it's like, Boachuk won because it's a world title, but
active, aren't they? Like they throw so many punches. The pair of them, that'd be an unbelievable war of a fight. But obviously, Boachuk's got to get past this Ron Madrimov, which is certainly no easy task.
It's a good fight, that. It's
really is,
just because of his output alone and his durability.
You've got Boachuk's output and punching power. I think he punches hard as well. And then you've got Madrimov, who's a little bit more considered and a bit slicker, but also punches hard.
But he hasn't looked invincible. Madrimov,
no, he can be hit.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really good fight, and certainly 154 pounds is on fire. If you haven't watched the middleweight offering from Saturday night's Tim Tszyu, Bakhram Murtazaliev Tim Tszyu card between Cesar Matteo Tapia and Endry Saavedra, I would massively recommend going to watch. I'm not going to spoil it for people who maybe haven't seen that fight, but go and watch that fight. Terrific fight on the undercard of Murtazaliev versus Tszyu. That brings to an end the review section of this week's pod. We've got a little bit of time to look ahead to this weekend. I know Barry doesn't have time, but we've got a little bit of time to look ahead to this weekend. Jack Catterall returns against Regis Prograis. Seems to be kind of being billed as the one before the world title fight. Of course, he got that revenge win, if you want to call it as that, over Josh Taylor last time out.
Exactly what you call it.
And now boxes Regis Prograis, of course, who's been there, seen it, and done it at £140, but perhaps isn't the same Regis Prograis that we saw against Josh Taylor a few years ago.
He might not be, but he's still a good fighter, and it depends how you approach the fight. So, as a fan, to make it fan friendly, you want Catterall to come into this fight thinking, because certainly against Taylor twice, said it the second time, he was a little bit more adventurous. And you think, we want to see that Catterall, where you think, actually, I can hurt people now, and I can be more adventurous, I can be busier and not just wait for mistakes, I can force mistakes. That fight then makes it a great fight, but also gives Prograis loads of opportunities to catch him and chin him. So to win the fight conclusively, which I think he can, Catterall, he has to be the safety first, boring approach, which no one wants to see. But that's the fight that's the tactics that win him the fight, I feel. I think Prograis is you need to be standing in front of Prograis for him to be effective. That's why he had such a war with Taylor, because Taylor went right at him. That Taylor though was brilliant. Like, he was an absolute machine. But Prograis so strong and hits hard and real tough, means that if you're in front of him, that's the fight you want. So you're watching Devin Haney fight and going, that's how I beat him. In and out, force him to come over the front foot and then ping him with a shot. Hopefully then I catch him coming forward. I might get to drop him, but I ain't going to stop him. But his feet are not as fast as they've never been massively fast, his feet, but they're slower than they used to be. But I think Prograis needs to just jump on Catterall early, really early, drag him into a fight really quick, take that little bit of a risk of walking onto a shot to think, I'm the heavier hitter here, and naturally stronger he'll feel. Though I think Catterall's stronger than what people think he is. And make him work hard. What Catterall has shown in the two Taylor fights, and certainly the second one, is his engine's pretty good. He can box at a high pace, and he's quite tough, isn't he, actually, than what he looks and what his style would suggest. I think he's a real tough kid, Catterall. So yeah, know that. But knowing that sometimes makes you fight a fight that you don't need to prove, I can do it now, I can show you how tough I am. So yeah, I sort of contradicted myself here. To win the fight, you got to go back to being the more safety first Catterall, and he can coast. Catterall can coast. I don't like fighters who coast, because you get into trouble. I think he's a fighter that can coast the fight quite well and win it. I used to criticise him for wanting to look good rather than be good in the past, before he moved up a level, And I think we saw it against Linares, where he could have done a lot more and didn't sell himself when he could have. And I was quite critical of his performance, that he wasn't quite comfortable against a brilliant fighter who was nowhere near his best, nowhere near his weight. He could have done a lot more in that fight. I think they were set up for him to look better. But he didn't want to take the risk, and I understood that. So tactically, it was quite clever. But it was that fight was set up to sell himself, and he didn't do it. But then the Taylor fight, the second fight, then he sold himself, and that's what didn't matter in the end. But I think it's a fight that he can win, but it's loads of danger involved. If people think Prograis is there for the taking, I think you're massively mistaken. So, should I say the same thing again? Just stop me now.
No, but we're going to bring in Andy for a different perspective on Catterall versus Prograis.
Yeah, I find it kind of interesting the way that a lot of people do seem to be kind of writing Prograis off a bit. That he's damaged goods now after the defeat against Haney, and not that this is going to be an easy win for Catterall, but I don't think people are looking at this as being as dangerous as I think it is, and for that reason I think we'll see Catterall be sensible and do what he does best, which is absolutely what he should do. Never mind us. You know, you look at his career, he's had to be patient. He had to suck up the decision against Josh Taylor, which had a massive impact on his life and his future prosperity, because we think about it in terms of the glory and the titles and all the rest of it, but in real financial terms it means that he didn't get to make a first defence as an undisputed champion of the world, which would have made him a load of money. And he made good money in that rematch, but he had to wait a really long time for it. So don't now kind of fall into one of those potholes that loads of people have before, and come unstuck trying to, please the mob, please the crowd. Just do what you do best and win, and move on from there. And I feel like he can beat him if he boxes to his strengths. It seems mad to think that people choose sometimes not to box to their strengths. But they do it, and they do it quite often, and it's what I was talking about before. We don't always learn from the mistakes that we've seen people make previously.
I think he's somebody really, Catterall, who has always sort of stuck true to his
I think
values,
so,
isn't he? Really,
yeah.
He's a fighter who's never really overcommitted in fights. There's been times when you kind of mentioned his name with regards to somebody else, Tyrone McKenna. Remember the Tyrone McKenna fight where it's quite similar to a lot of his fights. Really, like
Ohara Davies.
Another one. Yeah, I mean that was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. It was in Leicester.
Yeah.
When it was the same card as well as fucking Daniel Dubois against Kevin Johnson. I watched Kevin Johnson fucking around the ring for 10 rounds.
He put that Schwarzkopf or whatever his name was. In Dubai again, he did it right. He just goes, I'll take any risks here. I don't need to take. So he's clever. He thinks a lot, Catterall. But early in his career, like he boxed an Argentinian, and again he started off really well, and then he must have felt something or didn't feel right or felt something, and just thought, I'm just gonna do enough here. Like this is really early in his career, where they started stepping up to 10 rounders, and he thought, you could do a lot more. But and so I thought he just wanted to look really pretty and do all the good stuff, and it's like, just be good, don't look good. Sometimes it's better to win ugly than to lose pretty. That's what my trainers say to me a lot of time, and I stuck with that because I never win pretty. But I mean, sometimes it's a thing. Winning's everything. But he just goes like, nah, man. This is how I box, because it does work for me. Whether whatever you think, I stick to myself. And then what he's shown though, when he has to, he has the minerals to dig deep. He has the bottle to know to fire back against someone like Taylor, by the way, who's a nasty piece of work in that ring. The last thing you want to be, the last person in that division you want to be caught not having the bottle is against Josh Taylor, because he'll if he sees a weakness, he walks right through you. There's no mercy with that kid. So Catterall had to step up twice. Let's be honest. But this is a fight where again, this Prograis is a bigger hitter than Taylor, for sure. A really heavy-handed and can hurt you, can cause you loads of problems. And against Devin Haney, Haney boxed the perfect fight against him. We argue Haney became the puncher because he dropped Prograis, but he knew he had respect for Prograis. He didn't give him an opportunity. The feet were more important than the hands. In and out of distance, held his feet long enough to rally off combinations, but always found that exit route straight away. So didn't allow Prograis to fire back. And I think that's the route you go. And if he does that, it's a good fight to watch. But I think Prograis will. This is a bigger fight for Prograis than it is for Taylor. If it is for Catterall, because if he loses this one, there is, especially because though Catterall is a big name, we think, in the world of boxing, financially, marquee wise, this is not the name that Prograis needs to elevate his career. I don't think. He's boxing Devin Haney's and people like that. They're bigger money fights, aren't they? Catterall for him is probably a step down financially, I would feel. It's not disrespect for Catterall. He's a world-class fighter. He proved that. He should be undisputed world champion, for God's sake. And
yeah, I mean, it's
but just the marketability of it all.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he was a defending champion against Haney.
Yeah, but so this is going to be like, if he loses to him, now he goes further on the pecking order of all those big names that are still in that division. It's still a great division with loads of big names and loads of big fights to make. But so for Catterall, this is the fight. I think it's a fight that he can win, and he can win quite well. But I think he has to be very, very disciplined, very, very cautious. Certainly, you got to be cautious at early rounds without allowing Prograis any sort of success. If Prograis gets a bit of bully about him, and Catterall's just being safety first, then he might just invite too much trouble. And if that happens, then you got to bank on. If he's exchanging in the centre of the ring with Prograis, you fancy Prograis, don't you? I do. The speed, because he still has his hands are still fast. You think Catterall has probably the faster hand speed, but Prograis throws with intention, and there's lots of speed in his work, and he can accelerate with his work as well. Prograis, that's what's impressive with him. But if he uses the feet in and out, Catterall, and keeps spinning him all the time, then he won't have much success because they're both southpaws. So that turn that he'll use won't work for him. Is if he turns and Prograis steps, then he blocks that route off, so he's going to have to start changing his angles a little bit more. But the jab of Catterall is brilliant. He sort of stoops down with it and punches up. So it's very hard. He sort of leans over. He gets a little bit more extension on the shot, but it's very hard to defend against, and that's what Taylor struggled with, the jab of Catterall. If you can get it off and then the feet, then I think he can skirt and dance and dart in and out of a really good victory, which would be his second best victory after the Taylor win, and then hopefully he gets a world title shot, which he deserves, more than he deserves. It's a shame about that first fight with Taylor, because he'll never become an undisputed champion, Catterall. I mean, the chance of you being undisputed is so never happened. I mean, we've seen more of recent times, but that'll probably never happen for him. But he might not ever win a world title, that's the thing. He's in such a hard division. It's a very interestingly poised division as well. We spoke about this quite a lot over the last year, 18 months or so. 140 pounds, obviously, kind of, the four kings of lightweight, becoming 140 pounders and getting a bit bigger and whatever else. We saw, Devin Haney against Regis Prograis. It was a brilliant performance. Everybody thought, okay, well, Devin Haney's going to be there. So before them was Teofimo Lopez against Josh Taylor. And then Teofimo Lopez looked, really poor against Jermaine Ortiz and didn't look great against Steve Claggett. And it's still kind of everybody jostling for position. People thought Subriel Matias was going to be the guy, then got beat by Liam Parrow. Looks a really
good, well-organised fighter. I guess sort of where I'm going with this
things just haven't happened in the way that people thought they would.
No, that's boxing, isn't it? That's why they fight the fights.
Javante Davis is filtering back and forth anyway. Charles Stevenson's due to move up, isn't he? There's loads of big fights, but you're right. No one's cemented their case yet.
No, and my point being, because I very much agree with you, Barry, with Catterall Prograis. I think this is very much must win for both, because for Catterall with his style,
yeah.
If he loses, I mean, it's already difficult enough for him to seemingly anyway get a world title shot at the minute, even winning and beating Taylor and beating Linares, and now he's landed on Regis Prograis. If Prograis loses, obviously it would be his second defeat in a row, and he was poor against Danielito Zorrillo before the Devin Haney fight as well, which is one of the reasons why I fancy Devin Haney quite strongly. One of the reasons why I fancy Jack Catterall strongly against Prograis. I feel like when Prograis has to come forward and force the fight, it's very different. Prograis likes people to come at him, which is one of the reasons why he boxed so well against Josh Taylor.
But you go back in his carear, we had him on Box Nation early in his career, he could move, he could walk you down or rush you down. But at a lower level, of course. But but he's as late. He's as a champion. He's used to be at fighters coming at him trying to win. I would say the Liam Parra, though, that might be a fight for. I think that's obviously they're on the same sort of stable, aren't they, with Catterall? But I mean, he's boxing
Richardson Hitchens in Puerto Rico.
That's what I mean.
It's a really good fight. That.
No, but it's what I'm saying is the fact that if he gets that win, the fact that that's 2 fights in Puerto Rico for him now. Obviously, they're looking for the Sabro Matisse fight again, but I mean, maybe that's what.
I think somebody just probably booked the venue.
Yeah, but I mean, though, but he's
Could be what happened there.
But he's boxing away from
Richards
home.
and Hitchens, massive Puerto Rican contingent.
But if he's boxing away from home, it might be an indication that he's not a massive ticket seller. So that fight makes more sense for Catterall, who hopefully sells a lot of tickets over here. Hopefully, I don't know what.
Is it at the Co-op?
Yeah,
the new arena. I really hope the tickets have gone well, because I'd love to see what the new venue kind of doesn't have to be full, but it's 23,500.
Michael Gomez Jr.
Be really good to see.
Hatton, Jimmy James Flint sell some tickets.
It'd be good to see if they could get that
I'm not going to
half or near half. That's a lot of people.
It's not easy to do, particularly
No, it's hard. It's hard. But
a
new arena is always really, really interesting to see how it is with a good crowd in for boxing. And
but I mean,
it's not like Manchester really needs one.
But
they've got one. So,
but if he gets a win, maybe they can get, if Parra beats Hitchens, maybe they can get him over here, and and then he gets his world title shot at home in a new. He can call it, that's his own little brand new fortress, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all clutching at straws here, but this is a dangerous fight for him. It's a winnable fight for Catterall, and I think you have to make him a favour, because he's the informed fighter, and you might think it's been maybe a little bit coming to the end of his career now, maybe Prograis, maybe. But there's danger there.
We mentioned earlier about Adam Azim and Dalton Smith. How far away are they from your Catteralls, your Prograis, your Hitchens, those types of guys?
Well, in reality, they're not far away, because all it takes something to say, do you want to fight him nowadays?
No, you think about Prograis' best win is a stoppage win over Jose Zepeda.
Yeah,
who was stopped, of course, over a couple of fights later.
Yeah, but a different Zepeda, but still a good Zepeda. But you tend to think at least for a couple more for Azim, and, and one other good name for Dalton Smith. But if he gets the opportunity, he'll take it. I mean, if Catterall wins, and then Catterall gets a world title somewhere, then you think Dalton Smith has one fight at least. Then that's a defence there for Catterall, isn't it? In Dalton Smith seems like a natural fight to make then, because Dalton Smith is now world class. He's in the world ratings. After beating Zepeda, he has to be up there.
Number 3 with the WBC.
Well, he has to be in the top 5, 6, 7 in all of them, maybe top 10 at least in all of them now, doesn't he? So, because of that win alone, so that puts him in the conversation for anyone, to be fair.
He's number 9 with the IBF, number 3 with the WBC.
Be interesting to see where Azim surfaces in those rankings, if he does after the win against Davies, because prior to the weekend, he wasn't in the top 15 with anybody.
No.
But a European Championship, like when you went, they used to make you top 10 in WBC.
WBC, yeah. I was at the WBC convention last year, and they didn't lobby for him. He was, I think, I can't remember. I don't think he was in the top 50. And I think when he was boxing for the European, when you win the European, you're supposed to get a top 15 ranking.
And Ohara wasn't in the top 15 either, so beating him wouldn't necessarily mean that he will appear.
No, so if you're not in it now, then what's going on?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, when's the convention next month? Fuck, it's only in a few weeks.
You're going there, you?
I don't
know.
To
conventions, you won't go to fights.
It's the same. Well, conventions is free food.
Your name was on a seat on Saturday, I saw.
Yeah, I was supposed to go, and then the trains were. The trains were a nightmare, and then we've got Declan Taylor. Shout out Declan Taylor, who's actually local in East London, so he doubled up.
His missus won a title
video as well
the other day. Didn't she
got a walk. Did she get a walkover?
No, she won it.
She was supposed to box. She was supposed to box on Saturday, I think.
I'm not that interested, but let's give him a shout though.
Well done, though.
No. I seen a picture in the ring with a hand raised, so she must have fought.
At some point, she did box. I think in the last week, she was supposed to box. On the Saturday.
And also, I got to say, it was John Conte's 50 years this year. John Conte won his first world title.
Big up, John Conte.
A proper world champion, a genuine world champion, not like dickheads I know.
My final one on the £140 division I mentioned there earlier. It's kind of like it's an unclaimed throne. I think at the minute we've got Jose Ramirez is boxing Arnold Barboza in a couple of weeks' time.
Jose Ramirez, you almost forget about him.
Still about had a really good fight with Francis Barthelemy.
Yeah,
in his last fight, was got knocked out in that fight.
Super featherweight though.
And now you've got Arnold Barboza, who I thought lost every round to. I did this the other day and I couldn't. Public nuisance, Belfast, Irish guy, boxed Arnold Barboza Jr.
Is that McKenna?
No.
Sean
McComb. Sean McComb. I thought he lost every round to Sean McComb. Unbelievable.
I texted him actually, McComb, after that. I said, mate,
I mean, we're talking about let's say for example, Azeez Edmondson, and some people talk about better be a bit more. If you want to watch a robbery, go and watch Arnold Barboza get pinged by Sean McComb for 10 rounds and then win.
I mean, we've had a lot of chat about it the last few weeks, haven't we? And I think I think I finally decided that some people like to call something a robbery just because they don't agree with it. Yeah. That's not enough. No. But there are some that it does fit, and that definitely is one of them that fit. But my point being on the we can say, can we have a platform on the £140 division? Let's say Jack Catterall defeats Regis Prograis this weekend. Who's the champion that you want? If you're Jack Catterall, who you want to fight?
Paro. Yeah.
I think he's got a very good style for Teofimo Lopez.
I'd say Lopez, yeah. I'd say. I mean, in terms of
big money as well.
The biggest. I'm thinking more in terms of the biggest fight.
I think that's a big fight, and I think he's got really good style for Lopez.
I think the quickest and easiest route would be Paro, wouldn't it? You would think.
Yeah, because it's in house. I don't know what's going on with Teofimo Lopez in Top Rank at the minute.
Jack Catterall could be an absolutely excellent candidate for somebody like Lopez to take lightly.
Yeah.
Couldn't he?
But I don't think he would now, because we've seen
with the whole Taylor thing.
Yeah, and then if Catterall beats Prograis, and I expect him to, then he sort of loses the element of surprise a little bit. But when you consider the fighters that we've seen Teofimo Lopez really struggle with and really have problems with, it's those guys who just take the distance away from them, make them lead off.
He's a really big fighter, but at the same time, if he's really up for it, Lopez, then he's exactly who you don't want, because he's really good.
That's what I was going to say then. That he's one of those guys. When he's brilliant, he's fucking brilliant. Yeah, he's one of those. He's there or there, and he's no in between with him. You can't get no. There's no average with him. He's either brilliant or well below par. Even if somebody still gets the win, but I mean, you get him at his best, then he's hard.
Those fighters are giving problems. I mean, Sandor Martin, I thought, give him all sorts of problems. Jermaine Ortiz, give him all sorts of problems.
But I think
from Southpaw.
But again, you tend to think it's the style, but I don't think it's the style so much. I think it's just who they are.
It's him, isn't it?
I don't know. I think he really struggles with wins. I don't think he cuts the ring off.
But I think he's an ego fighter. So he put all ego fighter. So he's big fights. I don't know somebody saying he wants you to come at him. But I mean, it's all ego fights with him. He wants he wants to be the superstar, which is right. I understand that, because that's what he's built at. That he can be. But I mean, if it's below that super fight in his mind, I don't think he's motivated. I think you find that with a lot of American fighters, because they're so geared up to being like, I'm the best, I'm a superstar, and I understand that, and when they get it right, they justify it. But I think then they have those fights below, they're like, what the fuck? They don't see the worth in it, do they? They just want huge. Nowadays, they don't fight unless it's a super fight.
Yeah, it's almost like they're annoyed at having to do it.
Yeah, I think he's one of those. They're just like, what's this all about? So I don't think he trains right for them at all.
Okay, we are going to just whiz through a couple of fights from the undercard before we do our predictions. So we're going to start off with the British and Commonwealth Super Featherweight title fight. This is the fight that I'm most looking forward to this weekend. Reece Bellotti against Michael Gomez Jr.
Oh, it's a hard fight to call, isn't it?
It's a hard fight to call, but two guys who love nothing more than to bite down on the gum shield, come forward and give it some welly, Barry.
I'm going to go for... I'm not predicting.
We're not. We're sort of there or thereabouts.
In a fight like this, you tend to think the naturally bigger two guys who like to be busy. The naturally bigger guy is going to be the one who has a bit of advantage, and that would be Gomez. But Bellotti's like, I've said this a lot recently, but he really knows who he is now. Really knows who he is. And he can still punch. People think he can't punch.
And he can box as well. He boxed really well, I thought, against Levi Giles.
But I think he's going to struggle to box in this fight, because I think Gomez is going to put so much on him that he's going to have to just fight his way out of trouble. I think that gets Gomez into trouble. I do. I think Bellotti can time. Bellotti's finding, because he knows who he is now, he's finding space to throw the shots. Where I think maybe years ago, before, he would just be a little bit more thing. But now I think he's finding space. I think he walks Gomez onto a shot. I think it goes long, that fight as well. I think it's a wicked fight. From the first bell to the last, to when it finishes, I think that's an absolute brilliant fight to watch. It's one of those fights you can't score. So I mean, it's just going to be...
Yeah, there's going to be so many shots, and there's going to be so many that are difficult to see what lands.
Yeah,
and how
I think so.
And
it might get a bit dirty. And
it'll be a very attritional fight. Yeah, very attritional fight.
Again, and Gomez has shown, he can dig in there and find his way up. But I think, Bellotti, he knows that whether it's a guy who's trying to not take my head off, a guy who's trying to outwork me, I know I can do it. Like he knows how to manage a 12-round fight really well. I think at this weight, he's better at this weight. He's more mature as well, I think, now. And I don't think, and even though there don't seem to be loads of miles on the clock either for him. So it's a hard fight to pick, actually, but all I'm doing is giving you reasons why I think Bellotti's going to win.
Well, he's the more experienced campaigner for sure.
But if Gomez can come at him and keep turning him as he's coming at him, to try and take away that left hook of Bellotti, then I think he could surprise us, I think. But yeah, you just got to go. I'd just go with the experience of Bellotti, I think.
Andy, you would have been in Manchester when Michael Gomez Jr. beat Levi Giles. It was the very controversial weigh-in shove, which really upset a lot of the boxing fraternity. I'm not sure Michael Gomez Jr. cares about that sort of stuff, but a very, very interesting character, of course, from the Gomez bloodline, and somebody who likes to go in there and have a tear-up. Give him a chance of beating Regis Prograis this weekend? Yeah,
I'd definitely give him a chance. I agree. I think Bellotti is too experienced for him. He's seen a lot of things, and I think that ultimately will be the difference between them. But Gomez, I think, will give a good account of himself, will give a good performance, and it's certainly not beyond the stretch of the imagination that he could win. I don't think that his stock will fall necessarily, whatever happens. And I do think it will be a really good fight. And he's fun, Gomez. He is genuinely
mental.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's kind of crazy because you speak to him. You do need that, because I remember for that fight week, we were chatting to him, and Andy Scott was saying to him, as he often does, when he's getting people on something live, just need to remind you, either he says it on air or he says it beforehand. And I think with Michael, he said it beforehand. He just said, look, we really enjoy talking to you. We want to get you on as much as we can, but we just need to know that you're not going to do this and you're not going to do that. And Gomez just with a completely straight face, and you could tell that it was just a genuine answer, not for the cameras. He said, I cannot promise or guarantee you anything. And it wasn't like a fuck you, I can't. It was just like, seriously, I'm telling you this because I want to be a good bloke and be fair to you and want to be fair to Sky. I would like to be able to say that I won't do this and that, but I can't promise it. And so I think we had to use him quite sparingly during the week, which was a bit of a shame, but that's him. That's him.
I mean, it's nice because, we've spoken about this a few times. We're careful not to drag this out any longer. But you do need a bit, like, sometimes I think boxing at times, like nowadays, a bit sanitary, a bit like, we want to make sure everything. Sometimes you need a nutcase to come in there and
I think so.
You need it.
Be who you are.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. It's authentic. That's him. Yeah. That's him. He wasn't, like I say,
yeah.
it wasn't the kind of, I'm a bit crazy me. It was just, no, seriously, like, I'd love to be able to tell you that I'm not going to call him or whatever, but don't know.
Do you know what I like about him? He doesn't box the same as his dad, but he has the same attitude. Like every fight is the fight that might be the last fight. Yeah. They box like they box like the career might be over tomorrow, and that's why we love Michael Senior, because he was just great. There was a talk when we boxed him. I just didn't quite line up. I think if I beat Freitas, I think he might be in the voluntary defence, which is, who wants that? He's young, you lunatic, so I knocked my head off for 12 rounds. You know what I mean? Like, right. You would have seen the full effect of my feet. But I mean, he was in some great fights, wasn't he? You know what I mean? Because of the way he boxed every fight, like, this is going to be the last time I'm in here. Like, they understand I think they understand the privilege of what they got. Like, they just live the fight. So, like, they box with that passion that you can't just, again, like I say it all the time, but you just can't. Some things you just can't give people. Some people box because they're good at it. Some people box because this is the way out of trouble, and some people just box because they just found something they love and they're lucky.
And I think he also looks at the sport now, and he knows that he thinks now like I turned pro a bit too young, and I wasn't really ready for it. And it's only now that I'm really, or the last couple of years, that I've been living a proper life as a pro fighter. But he looks at how professional boxing works, and some of the comments I've read from him, I think he looks at it and just thinks, this is just a batshit mental business. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you get an opportunity here and then you do well and then all of a sudden you're waiting ages for another one. It's totally fucked. So when I get one, I'm just going to give it everything I've got and not really worry about what's next too much, because what I've learned is that who fucking knows?
Yeah.
And that kind of aligns with who he is. As far as I don't really know him, but it seems to.
I wish I had that. It can be so disappointing, and you do think you're getting like, oh, I'm doing this, and then you don't hear from nobody. Or you've had a bit of bad luck and then you definitely don't hear from nobody, and you see other people leapfrogging you, and people look like that the same for you. You leapfrog people and you think, what's he going ahead of me for no reason?
Yeah, and I think with him as well,
there is no reason.
I think with him as well, you kind of like look at other people who've got a famous dad with a surname and what's happened with them, and you just think, like, I'm good to watch. I'm a decent fighter. Like, what's happened there?
Well, this is the opportunity for him.
It is.
It is very much the opportunity for him. He wins this, and he really does become a serious player who's in British boxing, British and Commonwealth champion.
It's a fan-friendly fight.
Excellent fight. It really is a brilliant fight. As soon as the fight was made, I was like, oh yeah, that has got some violence. Another one of those fights where, from the outside, great fight. Good luck to the guys who are in the ring. No, but that is going to be a hard night's work for both men.
But I think Bellotti won't be worried because he's been in these fights before. He'll feel, and he knows how to manage him. And Gomez sort of wants it that way.
Yeah, he won't be worried either because he's a lunatic. Anyway, well, I'm not going to be there this week, so just beat up Andy for a while. But anyway, and finally, it sets us up nicely to talk about another son of course, Campbell Hatton, who goes in with Jimmy Joe Flint on the back of his first career defeat, of course, to Jimmy Joe Flint back in March of this year. Barry, what does Campbell Hatton need to do in this rematch that he didn't do first time around?
I don't think he can. You gotta keep Flint off on the end of your jab. I think, and I just don't think. I don't think he has that capability.
Are you surprised they've gone straight back in?
No, because I don't think it was a whitewash, but I think you have to, because he haven't got the wins behind him to sort of like ignore that. So you've got to try and right that wrong now before you move up. So but I think it's a really hard night's work for him. I do. Because even when he throws the jab, it's always the work to do something else. Not quite like his dad. His dad would throw the jab to throw a left hook, but it's always to which you should, like, to work off it. But he hasn't got a solid jab and you just go bam, can stop you in your track and regroup, and he hasn't got the footwork to get in and out. He tries to move his feet a bit better, but and he hasn't got the strength to bully you either, I don't think. I proved that against Flint, who was much bigger, much stronger. Not bigger, but much physically stronger, busier. I fancy Flint quite big again. Actually, I think it's a hard night for Hatton. So unless we see a whole new, different breed of fighter, but you're not going to see that, are you? You're not. I mean, you might make improvements, but and again, it's not a fight. It's a fight you can win. But I just don't think you can change him from what he was. You just can't. He is what he is, isn't he? Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm saying he's still good.
Yeah, but as pertaining to this fight.
Yeah. So I don't, and I just think it helps Flint, because whichever you like it, he's going to be in front of Flint, and Flint, I just think he does the same job as he did the last time. I think, but it'd be a good fight. It was a good fight to watch. I think it'd be a good fight again. I think that's, from that perspective, it's a good. It's a winner. It's not a fight that he can't win, Hatton. But I just fancy Flint.
Andy, we've seen Campbell Hatton now, of course, no longer with uncle and trainer Matthew Hatton.
Who's he with now?
He's with Barry Smith. So down at Ben Davison's gym, it's with Barry Smith and the guys down there.
This is the first one, isn't it?
This is the first one. Now, Jimmy Joe Flint has boxed since, and he lost a split decision in June of this year to Kyle Boyd. But of course, he has won the first fight here and will be confident of doing the same. Same question to you, really, Andy. What does Campbell Hatton need to do here, or is this potentially, it's not an unwinnable fight, or is this potentially a fight that we maybe could have seen a couple of fights down the line once he's bedded in with that new team?
Yeah, I think that probably would have been a better idea. But I think when you're him, even when you're at the level that you're at, you have the same level of expectation on you to do things like this that people who are levels above you have. It's that strange situation that you find yourself in, and you probably put yourself under that same level as well, where you feel like, I need to, prove the family name and all that kind of stuff, and you're never going to be left alone to just develop like a normal young pro would if you're called Campbell Hatton. That's just the way it goes, and he's always known that. I think he's always been realistic about that. But he is at the level he is at, and there's nothing wrong with that level. It's a perfectly respectable level. But people will always want more. I think it's a tough job for him. I would be surprised if he won this rematch, quite honestly. And you just wonder whether continuing at that kind of level, I'm not saying he'll retire if he doesn't win this fight, but I just think you're in an unusual and quite difficult position if you don't manage to click through the levels because of the pressure you're under to do so.
With this, we've spoken about this, and we would have spoken about this from his professional debut. There's always been the suggestion that he could go and do a few fights off TV and go and do it. It's not going to happen if your last name is Hatton. It's not.
No, it's not. It's not. And he was on that undercard. He was on the AJ undercard at Spurs, where he got the decision, but he lost that fight, and he got absolutely slaughtered for it. And again, it's not his fault. He doesn't judge the fight, but He was merciless, the reaction to that one. And then he did kind of take a couple of more low-profile ones, but ultimately people do want to see him because it's a good story.
Regardless of what happens this weekend, and this is the final thing, how about this for a potential fight for Campbell Hatton in the future? Campbell Hatton against Adam Hamed.
Wow. Yeah, I've not thought of that, but yeah, why not?
Both £140.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think.
It's a good fight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he boxed at super light last time, didn't he?
£140, yeah.
He just he boxed light as well.
Yeah.
But we like a gimmick fight.
Well,
yeah.
There we go. Put it on the Eubank Ben undercard. There we go. Eubank Ben, Hatton.
It's funny all these sons of famous and rich dads turning pro. Like I said about Ben and Eubank because they got in the ring after the Eubank fight in Riyadh, and I said it's two rich kids. Who, to be fair, box like their pa. To be fair to them, they both got plenty of bottle, but it's not everyone. You don't have to be from an underprivileged background to be a boxer, but it fucking helps. It massively helps in everything you do. Whatever helps drive you. So usually it is poverty, or you don't want to be, or whatever it is that, or not having stuff that helps people achieve stuff, and that's why middle class and like yourselves, you do better academically because you're pushed to succeed more in that way. You know what I mean? We're just like, don't get in trouble. In my house, please don't come to your door. You're a good kid. That's all that matters. So, but for kids, especially with famous fads, the weight of expectation is too difficult. There's too much pressure, and I'm sure their dads didn't want them to turn pro, but all they see is that. But it's too much. Because again, they get the financial rewards when they don't, undeservingly quite often. They get way too much money for fights. Look at Conor Ben; he's made millions. Where if he was Conor Smith, he would have made thousands. I'm not saying he would have been. He might have been a better fighter, because he'd been able to. Also, you don't have the pressure. You can learn your trade.
Yeah.
In
like you say, in the shadows and off TV and all that. Like I was able to. But then so there's pros and cons. But financially, the pros massively outweigh the cons, don't they? Because Eubank made millions before he boxed anyone, and so did Conor.
It does throw up those more difficult obstacles. We spoke about it earlier with Tim Tszyu. Now he's lost, or he's this, he's that, he's not.
But all these people, they've all turned out to be good fighters. But then you get other fathers and sons, and they don't work out. And Campbell Hatton has quite worked out as well as the Ben and the Eubank, because he hasn't been as successful as them. So quickly he might be down the line, but who knows? And he struggles. And you can rebuild at the level he's at, There's no room to rebuild.
Yeah,
No.
where do you go
I mean,
from there?
yeah,
That's the problem.
Where do you got to think if you can't cut at this level, don't mean you can't box. Now, everyone's got to be a world champion. Everyone's got to be a British champion.
When we speak about this, though, is what's the end goal for you? What constitutes success? What are you doing?
If you enjoy it and you're boxing, there's some people just if to win an area title is everything to somebody, and why wouldn't it be? I didn't know what my level was. If I would have been British level, I thought it was going to be British level at least. That's what I thought, to be honest, at least. And I thought, but if that would have been the level, and I never got to world level, I would have been happy, wouldn't I? Because you just don't know. Other people turn pro and they have that, like, and nowadays everyone turns pro thinking they don't say I'm going to honour the world champions, I'm going to be undisputed.
Oh, a multi-weight
for weight. I was like, I was you're going to put on weight, but like, I've been this size since I was like 3. But I mean, you just don't know. So for him, it's difficult for Hatton because like whatever he does, and also whatever they do, whatever they achieve, is never going to be as much as what their dads achieved. That's the horrible facts of this. You're always going to be, you're always going to be compared to him. But and that's why when I have my son turn pro, because he'll be better than me, and I don't want that. Do you know what I mean? I want to be the best in my family, not him going to steal my limelight. He's a pain in the ass as it is. But I think so for Hatton, it's a hard. He can rebuild at this level. You've got to go straight back into the rematch, even if you have changed trainer, which is usually a sign of desperation. Not always. But, I don't see how they're going to massively improve him overnight.
Yeah, you'd imagine that Matthew... I mean, I don't know it to be true, but I'd imagine Matthew's been with him right from the start.
Yeah,
like,
and it's a good...
very
Listen,
start.
and he's a good trainer. Barry Smith's a really good trainer.
Yeah.
And all he trains are good. But you're only as good as your fighter. I say it all the time, it's true. And they'll admit that. They're really good. Trainers are really good and they really help you. And if you don't click with your trainer, that's another thing. And sometimes it's a different voice telling you the same stuff. Just a different voice. Sometimes you hear it different. You hear it when someone else tells you something different, something the same. Sorry, maybe that's what he needed. Sometimes you get stale, and also it's your career. That's the thing about boxing. It's your career. So, if you feel going somewhere else is good for you, whoever it upsets, it's not very nice. As long as you do it in a grown-up manner and a respectful manner, and you go to that person and say, "Listen, I'm moving on." How they take it is up to them. But don't just go. That's what I say to the boxer. Don't just him, fuck off and go somewhere else. Go tell them to their face.
Part of the equation with him might be, he might just think it might be helpful for him to get out of Manchester and away from the whole Hatton thing and not be trained by Matthew.
And be around other fighters.
And just be down, go have camp down in Essex where he can walk down the street and nobody knows who he is. He might think that'll be a helpful thing for him. And he could be right.
But having the luxury to do that, by the way. But that's another thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I couldn't have done that. I mean, that's a good one of the training in Cardiff. I couldn't go outside of Cardiff.
No. You're right. Again,
my bus pass was only Cardiff Central. See,
he was only limited to one section of Cardiff.
Yeah. The restrictions of.
I still had that kids bus pass. Cause I just wear a baseball cap.
Right. Okay. We are at the end of today's show. We're in the all too rare situation rather. Of getting some predictions from Andy Clarke this week, ladies and gentlemen. There we go.
Treat.
What a treat that is.
You just note these down and don't put your money on them.
So we're going to start with the fight that we've just discussed. Jimmy Joe Flint against Campbell Hatton 2. Andy, will it be repeat or revenge?
It'll be repeat, I think. I think that's the only sensible choice with that one.
Decision?
Yeah.
Barry?
Yeah, I think so. Same.
Yep. I also think it'll be a Jimmy Joe Flint decision win. Going to come back round the other way. Reece Bellotti against Michael Gomez Jr. Barry?
I'm going to go... It's a hard pick, this one, actually.
Hard.
So I'm going to go Bellotti with a late stoppage. With Gomez exhausted, that's all. He catches him clean. Yeah.
Andy?
I find that sort of pretty convincing, to be honest. I think Gomez will... I think he will just swing until the very end.
It's a wicked fight, isn't it?
But I do think that Bellotti is... I think the experience is just key. And late in the fight, he'll be able to hold it together a bit better and find a way through. But I'm going to say Gomez will stick it out to the end.
I wouldn't be surprised, really, with either outcome, either way. I'll go for Reece Bellotti. Points. Not very confident, though, I have to say. He's a big lump.
As I say, the match, I guess, you go for the naturally bigger guy.
Yeah. He's a big lump. And that's basically how you've said it, where you've got two attritional guys, and you've got one who's sizably bigger than the other. I know Reece wasn't he was a big featherweight, but still, But I will go for Bellotti, the experience. I thought he boxed really well against Liam Dillon.
And I just think he might. I think he'd be able to time Gomez coming on a little bit. What was that kid?
Levi Giles,
but Levi Giles. I think that because I think he caught Gomez coming on a little bit. I think
that was a close fight. That was
very close fight.
Levi Giles. I thought Levi Giles probably just about nicked
it was
that
close.
Fight. It was very, very close.
I was closer. Yeah, I thought Levi just done enough, but it was close enough not to argue. Robbery.
And then the final one, Andy, going to come to you. Jack Catterall. How will Jack Catterall fare against Regis Prograis?
I think he'll win points. I think he'll do what he does best. I don't think he's going to fall into any macho gung ho traps. I think he'll win on points.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think he'll go. He'll Catterall coast. I think.
I'm going to go for Jack Catterall stoppage.
Oh.
I'm going to stop Prograis. I think Prograis at this stage of it, I think Prograis really struggles with fighters who don't come towards him. I thought the Zorilla fight showed that. The Haney fight showed that. Also wonder about him making 140 still at this age. He's 35 now. He's been tight at that weight for a long time. And I think Catterall is an underrated puncher. I think he can punch a bit with the left hand. It's just what you've said there.
I don't think he gets the angle with the southpaw though.
Potentially not.
Against another southpaw. It's a good shot.
But I think I've got a feeling that Catterall might catch him with a shot. Because Taylor has a very, very good chin. And he hurt Taylor a few times in that fight. Late on, he hurt Taylor. And that's something you don't really associate too much with Catterall. He kind of hurts you early on.
In both fights.
Yeah. Yeah, he hurt him in both fights. He dropped him in the first fight, but I think he was more hurt in the second fight. Yeah. Second fight, I thought Taylor was hurt late on. But I'm going to go for Catterall. I think Catterall's will catch Prograis flat-footed in punching range. I think Prograis has been a very good fighter, but I think there has been a notable drop-off. That Jose Zepeda fight where he won the world title, not an easy fight. He looked good in it, and he won, but not an easy fight. And I feel like now, having picked Jack Catterall to stop Dara Foley and him not doing that, I feel like this is the one now for Jack Catterall. I think the style is much, much, much better for Catterall than it is the
Mine's
other way.
me going against Kiko Martinez. Just go against him. He's going to get beat in the end.
At some point.
12 years later. 12 years later. Come on, Kiko.
But that is it. That's all we have time for today. Thank you very much to our esteemed panel, Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke, for their patience today on the new and, I wouldn't say new and improved. It's a very threadbare set.
New set, new day, new fee.
There you go. Exactly.
We almost got 3 hours into the podcast before we mentioned it, but that's enough.
I've been texting you about money all the way through it.
But that's all we have time for here on this week's episode of The Boxing Show. Remember, you can catch us every week on Monday. Don't forget to listen as well wherever you get your audio podcast. Pop in the description who you think is going to win, Jack Catterall or Regis Prograis, and we'll catch up with you next week.